just be talking. I'm live. Po 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 po. Just copy this. I need to share my live now. Hello guys, hello guys, hello guys. Let's get it. Let's get it, let's get it. Today we have some topics to discuss. We have some topics to discuss today. Hello everybody. Just give it a minute or so. Okay, I see there's already a guest. Really? No, I'm not Zulu, my brother. I'm not Zulu. What's up? I don't have Zulu ancestors. Sanbona Loki. Sanbona. You're the one who was asking about Nat Indian, and about Kwankuta, isn't it? You know what I figured out about Nat Indi? Since you said you guys are matrilineal, it really means, it seems to mean, the woman who rules with a fist. Yo, people answering for me in the comments. The woman who rules with a fist, like that's the closest thing I've seen. The woman with an iron fist. Hey, greetings guys, greetings. Just waiting for my guests to arrive. And when my guests are here, you can get started, really. Hello, guys. Yeah. Abantu bakwaNkuta, if you go online and search Nguta clan, you'll find some information about them. It is said they are connected to Wagamazibuku, but there's not much knowledge on them. Hello, Mr. Lee, Mr. Shono. You can come join as a guest, my brother, before we start. Hello, Slimansi. Greetings, Mr. Yanga. Greetings. Greetings there. Someone asking if I'm Zulu. No, I'm Xhosa, my brother. I don't know if you're a brother or not, but yeah. I'm a Xhosa man. Into the Xhosa. Mr. Lee. Molweni Buki.
Molo.
Hey Murena Likai. Greetings.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. You were on Bluetooth. Say that again.
Likai Murena Likai.
Madume ngwaneso. When I'm swimming, ke leboha ngwaneso. Ke
Hey.
leboha mina.
Yeah. My Sesotho is not that great, but I try. Ke a leka hle banna.
Ke a utlwa ntate gore wa leka ai. Wa tsela go leleme lena la rona le batla hore leleme e be kare ha le a tia o lo tlamele o telle.
Hi. Ke tla improve. Ke tla
Okay, I see
improve.
that. Thank you for making me mod.
Ke tla nka nakwana ke improve Sesotho sa ka.
Ha ona bothata ngwaneso re ka nne re rutisane re kenyane ka dihlore re kgone ho re utlwane ka hobane le nna ke batla ho tseba leleme la bontatemoholo lena la sekgalekgale le ho
Hey,
thweng ke leleme la Khwe. Ke
hey,
batla ho tseba leleme leo. Wa utlwisisa ha nka tseba leleme leo, hai ha
yeah.
hona leleme le nka se kgone ho le tseba la mo Afrika Borwa.
Ah, that's good, my brother. That's good. No, I think we can get started, eh?
Yeah.
We had a discussion earlier, and I think we should start already. Tabani, please request again, my brother. I will accept you. I will accept you. You are more than welcome to join as a guest. Sikwantu apha, yabona? Sikwantu, whether you are Sotho, you are Zulu, you are Ndebele, whether you're Tswana or Pedi or Kwe or Kora, everyone is welcome. In fact, everyone is encouraged to join because this is bigger than all of us, eh? We're trying to go back in time, yeah. We're trying to dispel myths and
Yo,
yeah.
how are you?
I'm good. How's it?
Yeah, I'm good. Right, yo, khuluma isindebele.
Yeah, no. Kuluma ngiyakuzwa.
Yawuzwa, right. Mina nguDuve Mthembu Sithemba.
Mthembu osithembayo.
Mthembu.
eZimbabwe.
Yebo, umthokazi, udla mnonde.
Hey.
Ngamahlobo
Yeah, it's
ezulu.
good. Wamkelekile. Ekhayeni lakwantu. Apha ekhaya ke sizizizwe ngezizwe, sizizindlu ngezindlu. Kodwa ke abantu sonke.
Yebo,
Everybody.
ngiyakhohlwa lathi singamanguni vele siyinto eyi-one.
Hey. And we can't just say that with the mouth. We have to act it out as well. That we are one. We have to act it out because being one only with our mouth serves us very little, you know?
Yebo, singamanguni vele. Egazini vele.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
So what's the topic
Please tune in
today?
next week.
What's the topic today?
Please tune in. Yeah? We're gonna give you a chance to speak. So my brother, Mr. Lee, you're the moderator, ne? The first thing I want us to talk about is women. We have to talk about women in our lineages because I have noticed that it always gets brushed over. Thank you, brother. The fact that there are women in our lineages, women who are very influential, but maybe deeper than that, deeper than just historical women, but the place of women in our society. I want us to talk about that first, and the importance of maintaining that heritage of the women we have in our society. And then I also wanted to talk about the multiple. There were some photos. Do you have the photos, Mister? Photos of the Qainqasi men that I cool. You've got the photos. Okay. When we start on that subject, I would like for you. I would like to share them. Okay. And then thank you guys. Thank you guys. If you guys can hear me well now, please let me know before we start. If you guys can hear me properly, please let me know before we start because we're about to start now. We are about to start. I'm gonna accept the guys who wanna join as guests. I'm gonna mute all the guests because
Akhuleka babo, akusumsebenzi wakho lowo, uzoyenziwa yimi wena. Please focus
all right.
on
Thank you.
the discussion. Abantu abangenayo abaphumayo uzoba control. Khuleka Nkosi yami.
Oh my Qasem. So, and then after sharing the photos, I want us to maybe touch on some of the texts. Some of the texts alluding to, the queer communities in areas that today are assumed there are no queer communities. So we'll look at Lesotho, we'll look at Free State, we'll look at KZN, we'll look at Eastern Cape. Because I think there's an assumption that when we talk about queer people, we're talking about Western Cape or Northern Cape, which is actually the opposite of the truth. So we have to look at those things. And also we have to look at the DNA results of some of our well-known leaders, like Nelson Mandela, like Desmond Tutu, who did their DNA results and shared them publicly. And see maybe how common results such as those are in South Africa, and maybe what does that tell us? That the likes of Desmond Tutu, Nelson Mandela, and many others like them have very ancient so-called sand DNA, something that has not been spoken about, but you have to speak about that. And then lastly, there's something that is of much interest to me, something that I believe most people need to be exposed to, the changing of clicks to soft sounds. Sometime last week I had a live where we spoke about, I mentioned a hat that I was wearing and I called it umnwaz, and a sister, a Tswana sister, called it mungwazi. And I like that because those two words are cognates. Those two words are cognates. Mungwazi and umnwaz, same thing. One has a click and one doesn't. And this is very important because most people think just because there are no clicks, the words never had clicks before, or certain languages like Chivenda, Sipedi, languages that have no apparent clicks today. Most people assume those languages never had clicks ever. But when you look at the linguistics and the orthography of the language, there's very clear evidence that there's been clicks here. I'll give you an example. A stone in Kwi and Kwemana and Kwedama, it's Twe. Twe is a stone, right? Just one stone. It's the same, and also it's also Che. It's also Che, by the way. Che and Twe, it's a stone in Kwinkia and Kwemana Kwedama languages. Kwinkia is the oldest group of languages, like Kha, Nu, Kangre, and Khaigwe. They call a stone Twe and Che. This is exactly what you find in Sesotho. Lijwe. This is exactly what you find in isiZulu. Iche. In isiXhosa, Iliche. Che, and Jwe are just softened, and in Setswana, Linzwe are just softened or codified versions. In ancient Sintu language, it's Jwe, exactly the same thing. Because ancient Sintu, it's Proto-Ntu, right? The original Ntu language, which is literally a copy of Kwe. With or without apparent clicks, the clicks are there, they're just hidden. This is a result of what we call euphemism. Euphemism is a way of us using the next best sound for something in respect of another sound. My own mother, when she speaks, instead of saying ukuqonda, she's prohibited to say such words. And therefore, for other reasons, she can't use the word ukuqonda. She instead uses the word ukushonda, meaning the exact same thing. Ukuqonda, ukushonda. Iche, lijwe, linzwe, iche, it's the same as twe. And you also find this even amongst Kwe languages themselves. It's not just between a Kwe language and a so-called Ntu language. Even amongst Kwe languages themselves, you find the exact same thing. I'll give you another example. The shoulders or the shoulder blades are known as Arab. In isiXhosa, Kalaba. But if you go to Qora, that garab gets codified into a soft sound, garab. Igaraba, instead of ikalaba, the click is removed. It's qora. It's a Ikwe language, but the click is already gone. Thank you. It's garab. If you go to Kinyarwanda, Siyabonga. Kinyarwanda, they have the word gadaba, chigadaba, which means the shoulders. It's exactly the same. Chigadaba, garab in Qora, garab, and ikalaba in Isixhosa. And you cannot tell me these are just coincidences. That's not going to cut it today. There's reasons why this phenomena exist. But anyway, to start then with the topic, and I'm going to open up for the guests to speak, I want to talk about women because it's becoming dangerous, the exclusion of women when we talk about history. Some time ago, I was watching a video of some content creator, and he said, you are not related to your mother's people. And he was quite convinced. This gentleman said, you are not related to your mother's people. And I do not know what informed that claim. It's an absurd claim, to say the least. To be excessively polite, that's an absurdity to say you're not related to the people who literally brought you onto the earth. You know, the word mother in and of itself, it comes from the word mater. You know that gentleman, yeah, sometimes, you know, the herbs are strong out there, so we may understand certain things that people say. Very strong herbs. You must be careful of those herbs. They are natural, they are ours, but they are strong. But think about it, né? The word mother itself comes from the word mater. This is also the same root word for matrix, right? Which means something containing another one, something giving rise to another one. Without that one that's containing, the one that's being contained cannot be there. You can't have something inside of another where the container is not there. The one that's containing needs to be there in order for the one that's contained to be there in the first place. And material as well. The basal element of forming something, material. In fact, even in our own languages, mother it's consistent with the word amanzi, which means flow, continuity. Because the seed, unless it is planted, it cannot bear fruit. And you can't plant the seed in nothing. So this complete idea that you're not related to your mother's people confounds me, because we are taught that my mother's people are they are as much as my mother's. Growing up, there was a man who shared the same clan name as my mother. He was not my biological mother's brother. In fact, they were from completely different and distant areas. But because they shared the same clan names, we had to call him uncle, literally. Until his last breath, we called him our uncle. And he performed his duties as an uncle. Literally, whenever we needed him, he was there as an uncle. So that's what happens when you follow the right process, following the right aspect of our culture. Your mother's people are as much as your people is your father's people. Now, also think about it this way. Umalume, the purpose of umalume is that of your mother's father. When your mother's father passes, umalume becomes the father of your mother. Literally. When your mother is married, the cows are the father's duty now. But when the father's gone, the malume that remains is the one who takes care of the cows, which means the legacy of the woman is in the hands of umalu. So the idea that your mother's people are not, no, how can you go and marry your mother's people? No, because they are literally related. Even scientifically, genetically, it could cause some complications. It could cause some mutations. It's just scientifically unheard of. But I understand where it comes from. And I can see the dangers that it brings. We discount and minimize the women in our lives. And we end up the people like modern day South Africans who do not really know who they are. It's very important that you know your clan name, your mother's clan name. your maternal grandmother and your paternal grandmother, and their mother's names as well, up to the fourth and fifth generations. At the very least, you need to know those things, because that will open so many doors for you. Trust me. Because if we look at a patrilineal way, it's always going to be the same clan. Like me, I'm Mfene, Mutweneng. Those are my father's people. They are his father's people. They are his father's people forever. Until back then when we were the Elend people. But now, the true diversity comes from my mother's people. And my father's mother. My mother, Umanzoto. Her mother, Umampehle. Her mother, Umamgikwa. Her mother, Umadlamini. Her mother, Mamchawe. Her mother, Umamgcina, etc. You see now, it's opening up my prospects. Now, when I see Udlamin, I realize, oh man, damn, we actually connected. When I see Uchawe, I know we're connected. On my father's side, his mother, Kumamklane, and her mother is Umanyauzo, Ufako. And her mother, Umamnosin. You see? And her mother, etc., etc. 5 generations, 6 generations later, I don't see a Mpondo person or a Zulu or a Ndebele person as being that different anymore, because I can see, oh damn, somewhere down the line, I share blood with these people. Somewhere down the line, these are my people's people. Singaba cozy. And that's the thing. That is the basis of a unified people. You don't base a unified people on lies. No. You base your unified people on facts and respect for all your lineages. Very important. Because what will happen now? We will minimize our women. And as we minimize our women, we lose part of our ancestry. We lose part of our culture. And that is a problem. Now, amongst Amampondo and amongst Amampondo Mise, I will link it to what I just said now. Amongst Amampondo Mise, there's a man called Icha. Please listen to this. Amongst Amampondo Mise, there's a man. Amampondo Mise, by the way, are a nation, are a kingdom, somewhere in the Eastern Cape, parts of Lesotho. Fikile Mbalula comes from these people. There's an ancestor called Icha. And I will show you the dangers of minimizing the women in our lineages. There's a man called Icha, one of their ancestors. And I asked now the so-called historians, who is Icha and what is the history of Icha? Like, oh no, Icha was a prince. He became a king. His mother was a bushwoman. I will use that word for simplicity. Like, oh no, his mother was a bushwoman. They found her somewhere at the top of the mountain. The king liked her. She cooked nice. She gave birth to a child. And then she used to play with the child saying, "Ugh, ugh, ugh," and that's how the name came about. And obviously, I knew that was bull crap. There's no such a thing. But then I asked, tell me then, this woman, what was her name? Oh no, we don't know. Interesting. It is very interesting that a king's wife has a name that's not known. 2, who are these women's people? What is the nation that she came from? What is the clan name? Like Umamagas Kamlilwana, Shaka's mother, Unandi, right? Unandi of Abakwamhlongo or Abaselangeni. We know those things. It has to be. We have to maintain that. We have to preserve that. So I ask now, you don't know the name of this woman. You don't know the name of her people. What was the name of her father? Even her father is not known. They just know that they stayed in some mountain and she gave birth to a child called Tika. Do you understand that that entire history is lost? Not just the history of the woman, but of everything that connects. Everything that connects the name of the nation, where she came from, the way that nation lived. Because if we understand the Lobola process, we would know the culture and the practices of that nation. You lost everything. And then I tell them, even the name Tika now, you will not know its meaning because you don't even know what language Tika's mother's people spoke. And this is where the problem is. Qicha has nothing to do. Qicha has nothing to do with some bush woman playing with a child. Absolutely nothing to do with that. Qicha is a word that comes from the root I, meaning an ear. Earrings. So when you say cha is a locative suffix, but it's also used to mean abundance of something. I've explained it before in names like etc. It's used to mean the abundance of something. So when you say qicha, you're saying the abundance of ears. Someone with big ears like mine, you can call them qicha. They've got big ears as if they have earrings without earrings. So uqicha ngumadlebe, literally. And it makes sense because you could call a child that. This child has big ears or sharp ears. Oh, ndlemehle zombini, etc. Exactly. Absolutely. You could say ndlemehle zombini, qicha. And it starts to make sense. It corroborates with other stories from other parts of the country. But now, because we've reduced the woman, the mother of the child, regardless whether the child is king or not, but we've reduced the mother of the child. It's almost like she doesn't feature. We don't even want to understand the thought process of why she named that child that thing. And this is where the problem is, because now you ask the people of Qicha, what is your bloodline? They are confused. You tell them the name Qicha is found in Kwe languages like Naro or Qikwa. Kwe languages like Qi. But they were like, oh no, we don't know anything about that, because they discounted and discarded the history that came with the mother of the children. Come on, guys. Come on. So women in our country cannot be just discounted and discarded. They had such a profound role, like everyone else, like young people, like elderly people. Every single aspect of our society has always been important, and that's what kept us around for thousands of years. Only for us to diminish now? It's wrong, man. It doesn't make any sense. So today you speak to people, you ask them about who they are, they can only tell you one thing: their last name. Some don't even know how to explain their last name. Understandably, we're trying to fix that. And this is where now one of the questions came from Uluki, who asked about Naqindi, the matriarch of their bloodline. And Naqindi as a name, I don't know what language it is, but based on the structure alone, Na Unina, the lady of Qindi, I know it is a fist, the lady who rules with an iron fist. And I think this name just coincides with the fact that the Nkuta lineage is a matrilineal lineage. But because it's a matrilineal lineage, nobody knows anything about them. It's dangerous. It is dangerous because now you look at Tonga when you are Zulu as the other. You look at Pedi when you are Sutu as the other. You look at Xhosa when you are Bomvana as the other. Not knowing that the women of the Xhosa nation are the bearers of the kings of the Bomvana nation. The women of the Bomvana and the Tembu nations are the bearers of the kings of the Xhosa nation. The elders of back in the day understood it. They absolutely understood it. That's why today you're going to find the name Zulu amongst Amazulu in the clan names. But you're going to find the name Zulu amongst Amahlubi as well. You're going to find the name Zulu amongst Amampondomse, or Changisa, or Nguba, or Ngwevu. Why? Because these people believed in forming alliances more than anything. Don't be misled by the story of wars. Wars, people were killing each other. Not even. Trust me. If our people had been killing each other so much, by the time Europeans got here, we should have been finished. Should not have survived so long. We've been alone for a long time. We've been alone for a long time. You have Pukane, Upungani. You understand? And you find these names are in the same period of time amongst different clans, because these people build relations. And therefore, I would name my child even by the other king's name. Why? Because I would have taken the daughter of that king as the wife of this kingdom. So you find that the wife of this kingdom actually came from the other kingdom. Just a few years ago, during COVID, the queen of the Amaxhosa nation, Amachakhabe, passed away. And guess where the queen came from? She was the sister of King Zwelithini. The queen of Amaxhosa just now, maybe 5 years ago, was the sister of King Zwelithini. As simple as that. Do you know what that means? It means the husband of that queen, the king of Amaxhosa, could easily enter the Zulu kingdom. Easily, because he's now family. Through the woman. And if that story is not being told, both sides won't even know that they ever had such arrangements before. In the year 1650, oh, by the way, it was Queen Noloyiso. Was her name. Noloyiso. She passed away during COVID. In the 1650s, in the Western Cape, there's a place called the Overberg. Right? It's a region there where you have Grabo, you have Bodrivier, you have Swellendam, you have Rafier Sonnerend, you have Briere Rivier. Yeah, it's called the Overberg. There were people there called Enikwa. Enikwa are a branch of another group called Anikwe. In the Eastern Cape, they are called Amaete. The Enikwa had a very long-standing relationship with the Eastern tribes, Amaxhosa, so to say, and Amagwashu, Ama-Inkwa. In fact, there's a story that goes, by the 1650s already, there was a relationship that was established between these two groups, Western Cape and Eastern Cape. It's written down. House of Palo, the book. Now, you may not agree with everything in the book, but then House of Palo, there's a fact, just one fact that's been asserted. Amaxenikwa asekapa already had relations with Amaxhosa in Eastern Cape, 1650. Such that one woman, a queer woman who had been raised in the Xhosa kingdom, got married to the royals in Grabo, the Enikwa royals. It's written down. It's not my mouth saying this. To such an extent that the Enikwa in the Western Cape were sort of like the forefront representatives of Xhosa interests. Even when they met Jan van Riebeeck himself, they told Jan van Riebeeck about the Xhosa king. Those people are our kings, man. Now, people debate, which kings, which is it Xhosa, is it Inkwa? Same thing, trust me. All the Inkwa are Xhosa today, right? So in the 1650s already, in the 1660s, 1770s, when the Inkwa met with Jan van Riebeeck, at the foot of the Cape Colony in the peninsula, they're talking about the people in the East. How did that relationship come about? Because these people were already like an alliance. They're already an alliance. It was a very easy thing to do through forming bonds, family bonds. But family bonds are not formed by men only. You do need women to do that. In fact, there's a queen mother amongst the Amanika called Nonibe. Nonibe, the mother of Nika, I think. Nonibe was the queen mother amongst the Xhosa. She was given the duty to take care of Europeans, simply. Basically, she was like a foreign affairs minister. When the Europeans came about, she took care of them. She saw to their needs. And I'm not saying this was a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying women have had these duties for a very long time. When the British came about, she took care of them. To such an extent that in isiXhosa poetry, when we refer to the Europeans, the British, we call them Amagwang Akonibe, which means Nonibe's light-skinned people. Or Amahoik Akonibe, which means Nonibe's red people, because they wore this red regalia in the military. So this is how then you preserve the history of the women, by including their duties. Don't distort it and blame on them like people will try and insert a woman somewhere when they talk about history and put blame on that woman for everything. that has gone wrong. Like Mkabayi Kajama. Mkabayi Kajama was involved in the killing of Shaka. But what other things was Mkabayi Kajama involved in? What other good things was Mkabayi Kajama involved in? The Rain Queens of Bapedi. We need to talk more about these people. Do you understand? We have to talk more about them because they were there, they were very much involved. In fact, they did influence some of the actions of the kings a lot. So I just find it strange that people are emboldened. People are emboldened to say that you are not related to your mother's people. It is a myth to even assume that and think you are still sober. You cannot think that you are still sober if you think your mother's people are irrelevant to you. Those people are your lifeline. This is where you run. That's your place of refuge when things are not nice at home. Grown men are crying. Grown men are crying, mama way, when things are going tough. They are being murdered there by the other men. They are crying, the mama way. They're not saying dada way or baba way. 1 in 100,000 will say baba way. You see? Many women. Mama ni part of a mampondomise. Unonesi of abathembu. In fact, if you go to the early archives of Robben Island and look at the chiefs and the names like chief and prince and what we'll just use them for now, but I don't want those words. We'll look at the princes there and the royals there. Some of them have their wives there, and you would think those wives were arrested. No, they were not arrested. They voluntarily went to the prisons to support their man because they were that much valuable. Do you understand? Thank you guys for the comments. Thank you. Please mention those names. We have to talk more about these people. They were very important. And we can't discard that. And this is not about being woke. This is just about truth. That's it. Truth. We need to talk about the women. We need to talk about the elderly people. We need to talk about the young people who contributed heavily in our history as a people. Especially in these times when people are changing facts to fit their agendas. How do you say you are not related to your mother's? You say that with the red eyes, by the way, because you are busy there engaging in the herbs. Herbs are not bad, but don't do it too much. The herbs are going to make you upside down. So that's the first thing we need to talk about. Women. I'm going to allow one of my panelists, the guest, to say something, a word or two. Mr. Lee.
I know, that is true, my brother. Patriarchy in its many forms has actually subjugated and taken power away from Indlovukazi in general, So I think your subject is actually quite informative and it is true. When we look at our societies, we see what patriarchy is doing into our societies. There is so much imbalance. And when we take it back, we know that there's a reason why she's called Indlovukazi.
Yeah.
Because there is law and order, not just law.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? It goes hand in hand because in today's system, they will say justice, but there's no truth. So in Ndlovukazi, they were there to keep law and order. When we would talk about it from, let's say me, a Mosotho man, where like when I would use my mom as an example, that she took the laws Tsabafukeng and she had to create order. That is instructive, saying, oh, according to the law, when the firstborn, you must do this. And it must be done orderly.
Yeah.
That's why it's law and order. It's not just law. Yes.
Yeah.
So the women, they had that balance. And if we had to juxtapose in today's society, because our women have been subjugated, we can see that there is law, but there's no order. The women are not put in seats of power where they can actually create order, where things are done orderly, meticulously, diligently, in a processed manner, not just haphazardly, because it just needs to happen. You know, there's so many things we can point in our society where we're like, if there was order, this was going to be done correctly. I can pick one: agriculture.
Yeah.
We know that Mina makhulu wami, she was farming her own yard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and every time she did that, there would be plants, there would be food, you know. But once you start involving a man who doesn't understand the moon cycle, who doesn't understand the sun cycle, because those are things that were actually studied by women, they would know when to do things because they understand the principle of law, you know. So now, if we were to look at our society today, agriculture is mostly done by men. And what's happening?
It's all about
What's happening?
profits and money and exploitation.
Thank you. You understand? So
Yeah.
it goes deep, this women thing. It goes deep, you know, it goes deep in our society. And once we start understanding the high pedestal that the woman is actually supposed to be in, that's when we are going to understand peace and harmony.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay. Yeah. Just to add, no? Just to add. Uh, and you know, when we talk about women, it's very important that we talk about women for the fact that they are women. In and of itself, nje, that alone, without even mentioning other people, without mentioning men, without mentioning young, just women alone. One. And then two, one thing I wanted to mention is the woman that I mentioned there, Unonibe, the one who was responsible for handling European affairs. The name was so preserved that the Europeans themselves were called the people of Nonibe, Amakwang or Amahwe, the red ones of Nonibe. And when the colony took over, people who were government employees, like civil servants, they were called Ononibe, literally Ononibe, because Nonibe represented Europeans who are the ones who came with this version of government. So that was very important because the name of the woman is in our mouths when we speak about everyday stuff. So that's another way to preserve these legacies. Ne? Two, you mentioned something about farming, right? And I grew up obviously with a woman, my mother and my father, both are still alive. But my mother was the one who did the agriculture at home. So the planting, that's where I learned from her planting. I learned how to plant pumpkins, potatoes, beans, all these different things. Grew up doing that. I learned from her, especially about herbs as well. I learned from her time, the importance of time. Because even when you do planting, you need to know when to irrigate, when to water the plants. You need to watch the time of the day, when the position of the sun is. So I learned about that as well. But as you said, order and law, it's very important to preserve the work of women in our society because there were duties, you know. So things make basket making, weaving, the art of weaving, which was very important because we used baskets for everything. We used baskets represented continuity for us. Our food was stored in baskets, is lulu. We use specific types of grass to make those baskets. And women were experts at that field, probably still are to this day. Pottery, the making of pots and different types of pottery. We call it ingai. Those things, they were very much good at that. In fact, even house making, the beehive houses in my culture, at least in my culture, The men create the structure, uphahla, but then the women weave the grass. Abafazi bayafulela. Oh, also they work with men sometimes to do that with weaving the grass. So it was they worked in strata. You understand? One group does this, another group does that. So they worked hand to hand like that. And it was not about who's in power or who's not. It's about who's doing their duty and fulfilling it. Because without that, society falls. Society fails. You understand? So that was very, very important. Also, the birth order mattered as well. It mattered as well because firstborn was not just firstborn. Firstborn as a male was a different story, and firstborn as a female was a different story. A firstborn female was called and still called Uma Fungwashe. The reason why a firstborn female is called Uma Fungwashe is because kufungwa yena. Kufungwa yena. I'm not sure what that is. Uma Fungwashe is because kufungwa yena. So I'll give you an example. The royal prince Umakoma, his daughter, his firstborn daughter was a woman called Taselo. And therefore, because amabandla kaMaqoma bafunga uTaselo, he himself was called. Oh, okay. Thank you. I had no idea. Amabandla kaMaqoma called him Sotase, which means the father of uTaselo. He could have been called so and so, whoever, but because uTaselo is the firstborn, therefore his armies would be called as a nickname Amabandla kaSotase. Sotase, the father of Taselo. Taselo, the firstborn daughter. Same thing with the sons, but we're not talking about the sons now. And so I think it puts us at a position of danger to discard. I think we should not discard this aspect of the importance of women in our own culture as well. Just like men are very important. Men are important. Women are important as well. And I'm raising this because I've noticed there are some dangerous, narratives that are being peddled. I think I've said my part regarding this. We're going to move on to the next chapter, but I'm going to allow the two guests to say their part as well. Yeah. I think Amzo can go first.
Molweni nonke andibhutise. Ndiyabulela. Amahle lo. Ngihlathi lo ngilisa ujambasa ucanza usanzanza uza ngomveli wenu umalukazi. Umnombo wami ke ungapha kwezandaba za kucofa imvaba kodwa ke usapho lwami lasuka ngapha lawela inciba. Mina ndifuna ukugxila kakhulu wena mntu wolwazi kule ndifuna uyibeka ngesingesi. I want to put it in English. Cultural disappropriation, ne? Okokuqala, into ebangela uba okanye into ekhokhele like ngokokunokwam, ne, and this is open for mhlambi enye opinion. Sekunje nje elihlobo kuba bengaxabisekanga abantu ababhinqileyo ngohlobo namhlanje. Cultural disappropriation wena Hotman njani? Ilanto ba abantu lanto yongazazi ba ungazazi ba usuka phi. Xa ungazazi ba usuka phi mos awuzuzazi ba uyaphi. Umzekelo xa unobekwa in the middle of the Sahara Desert, you don't know which direction you came from, so therefore you don't know which direction you ought to go for. So uyafathula nje wena. Yabo. And this is not in any way offensive or demeaning mhlambi. Yabo. Umzekelo wena Hotman, each and every xa kuqala kukhona umcimbi kubakho isabelo sotata, isabelo somfana, kukho isabelo somama.
Yeah.
Inyama oqala uphuma ebuhlanti isiwa straight komama, kuzawunika umfana kuthiwa mfana masithatha le nyama uhambe uyise komama uthi esi sisabelo sakho, ne. And then ke ngoku okwesibini i-contributing factor wena kule nto ufumaniseka uba ezi nto zee-abuse nobulawa nohlukumeza kwabantu ababhinqileyo yinto uba basuswa ixabiso ngeendlela ezithile, which ke yabona xa ninongena apho ndingathi ndophele ngoba eyi ndikwanguye ukrweca izulu ke ngentethe nawe uzundinqanda yabo. So isusela umzekelo, ndikwenzela umzekelo ngelokishi wena bhutwana. Xana ufika elokishini uzawufumaniseka uba uva indlela ezi ntwana zithetha ngayo, umzekelo ngabantu ababhinqileyo xa sezihleli zenza i-discussion kuthiwe yho uyambona laa mntana kuthiwa haska hayi sendisuka kulo seyisuka nakubani seyisuka nakubani seyisuka nakubani. Uyabona uba laa nto yinto eyainstilwa ukhona yainstilwa to the point into yoba yafikelela kweli nqanaba seyilo ngoku, of which
Yeah.
kwangafani uba ifikile apho. Uyabona wena Khotman, because akho sizathu soba mhlawumbi kude kufikelele kule nto, is because akho bantu babona xabiso okanye value emntwini obhinqileyo, because usesinye isitathu ngoku. Yabo, umzekelo
Yeah.
xa kuthiwe hayi kudlwengulo ubani, it's just another state. Umntu uqhubekeka nemini yakhe, yabo, akavakalelwa nix, akuthenanga. Ufike ke ngokwabanye umzita ukhule neesister mhlawumbi zi-4 ebinguye yedwa umzita kowabo. Uyakwazi ufika umzekelo athi suka mna soze mna ndithandane okanye ndithathe umntu onomntana, ibe yena self umzita lowo umama wakhe waye sisancinzi umzekelo sikatatakhe. Uyabo? So ilaa nto yonga-understand wena Khotman umnombo nemveli uba kahle kahle usuka phi and yintoni ivalue yomntu obhinqileyo. Umzekelo omhle Khotman, ndizawuthina xana umzekelo xa kusakhiwa ibhuma,
Yeah.
andithi mosi phaa entabeni avumelekanga umntu obhinqileyo, andithi. Kodwa xana kusakhiwa laa bhuma iyaziwa uba ingca isikwa ngobani? Ngoomama.
Umama, yeah.
Xana i-structure esi sebhuma seligqityiwe ngoobani abahlufingca? Ngoomama. Xana usuka phana ingqongqo le ibethwayo xa usehla phaa uzisa itheni? Ibethwa ngoomama. And ke ngoku ineemfanelo zayo, baneemfanelo okwabo. Hence xa kuyalo kuqale kuyalo tata, and then ke ngoku kubuye kunikwe noomama. Uba ingekho ivalue mos koomama ngebe enganikwa chance, andithi. And ke ngoku kwisociety wena Khotman, xana ngaba kugcwele abantu abangaveluwishi into obhinqileyo, iye laa nto wena Khotman ichaphazele nesiko nesithethe.
Yeah.
Kuba izinto mos ziyatshintsha ekuhambeni kwamaxesha. So iye lichaphazele in the long run, fumaniseke uba hayi man akusenziwa ngelaa hlobo. Kutheni ngoku sekuthe mhlawumbi ilizwi lomntu obhinqileyo umzekelo lingavakali? Yabo, ndifuna nje umapho wena.
Mandibambe ngazo zozibini ihlathi Jambazi ngwakuthi nami ndingumjambazi. No, it is true, my brother. It is true. We operate from a place of balance. I think that is the most truthful statement about us. We operate from a place of balance. I think we have a lot to do, Nati, as the modern generation, to learn perhaps from, the past. And when I say the past, I don't mean 50 years ago. Perhaps before, perhaps as early as the 1500s, if we can find the relations between the different groups in our society now, how a household was meant to operate. Not in the 1950s, not in the 1930s, but in the 1600s, in the 1400s. And I think we stand a much better chance. And I know it sounds like a lot, but I think we stand a much better chance. Because if we're going to go to the 1950s, already by then we are broken as a people. The men are going to the mines. They come back with a completely different mindset. The men are being taken to prisons. They come back. So by the 1950s, there's not much we can learn truly about the purest way of existing amongst each other. But more importantly, we have to see ourselves in others. So you must see me as a reflection of you. And also you must see the next woman as the reflection of your mother. The next woman is a reflection of your sister. And I think that's the problem. You mentioned some people will say, I know this woman has 2 kids. I don't want it, which is fine. It's fine. It's absolutely fine because we can't be forcing people to want things they don't want. But it becomes a problem when you say, 2 kids. Now you might as well hang yourself because your mother might have kids before she got married. There were ways to handle those situations back in the day. How do we solve it? There are things like ukuhlawula. There are laws such that if uyintombi, your children belong to abazali bakho, and there's certain ways then that these things are balanced together. And so I'm gonna give the last guest songs say a few words on this before they attack the next issue on the line. Songs usasekhona? Okay, I don't think songs ukhona. Yes, my brother Mbuyelo, you can say that about misinterpreting ilobola. Hey, we are misinterpreting a lot of things, eh? We are misinterpreting a lot of things. And yes, having children of wedlock, basically, we have forgotten who we are, and all of us, men, women, children, we must go back. The onus is on us, but I think for now we are addressing the issue of women. Well, I'm noticing it's becoming dangerous because now when we talk about certain things, some people are unable to even conceive the idea because their minds have such a massive gap in terms of what history really is. They think history is about just your clan name. No, there's so many aspects to history that you cannot fully appreciate the full vision and the full picture of how things were. So you need to appreciate every aspect of your history. The history of the women in your lineage is important because it shows you how the relations were. Do you know nations became one because of the women? They literally stopped being separate nations and became one. Kunabathwa who united with Indlu yakwaDlomo emahlutshini because Indlu yakwaDlomo abathwa swore bafunga unonkosi. Kunamazizi yakwalanga who united with Maputing because one of their princes, the Zizi princes, had married within the Maputing princesses. The presence of the women. This is very important to understand. So we have to look at all these aspects because unless we get the full picture, we will not really understand what we are trying to do. I'll be addressing an issue here, and someone else will be like, oh, but what about this one? What about that one? No, we are addressing this one. And because we don't understand the full picture, we'll be a lost cause, like we already are. We already are. See, we are a laughing stock, actually. Ezinye izizwe azijonge thina bantwana bomgquba, bantwana people of the earth, you understand, of umhlaba. When other nations look at us, we are a laughing stock. We are literally a laughing stock, but we have way more privileges in terms of we've been in existence for so long and we could use everything that our ancestors tried to preserve for us to our advantage. But how do we use those things to our advantage if we don't even know what they are? And to know what those things are, we need to sometimes get rid of the things we think we know. That is why my Bible says, learn, unlearn, and grow. Because you don't just learn to drink from a cup that is dirty, you have to clean it. So when we learn these new facts, so the old truths we kept in our minds are going to conflict with the truth. So we have to unlearn everything. All of us, myself included. I'm not some, expert on anything. I'm just a learner, and I've been doing this for quite a while. So someone asked if I am usomlando. Well, I wouldn't say usomlando. Honestly, I'm just doing this, man. I'm just doing this, and it's happening. That's it. That's the best response I can give to whether I'm a historian or not. I'm just doing this. I'm an enthusiast of anything indigenous. I'm an enthusiast. I firmly believe that we have answers to everything that we need. We have answers. We have the answers. So those answers are within us. Those answers are within our ability. And I believe then we have to just unearth certain things. And also, I deeply believe we cannot be in existence for thousands of years and we have learned nothing in those thousands of years. If we think we have learned nothing in those thousands of years, it's because we don't know what we've learned. And to know what we've learned, we have to dig. And that's what I'm trying to get us to do, to actually dig deep, which means we all need to wear that learner mindset, lifelong learner mindset. So that's what I do. I'm just an enthusiast of indigenous systems, history, and everything in between. And yeah. Uhlala Bemnuga, I know Uhlala Bemnuga. He's been commenting on my stuff. He does some good work. I think there's potential for growth there. In the previous live that I was in, he was also there. It got heated up, but that's also fine because that speaks to a level of conviction that perhaps we need. We just need to find each other now. We just need to find each other. I'm gonna pass, ne? I'm gonna pass on this subject. I want us to move on to the next subject because there are some photos that my brother Lichono is gonna post on the screen, and it's gonna allow us to move on to the next subject. This is something we're talking about later. My brother, you can add the photos while I give Loki. I don't even know if I'm saying the name correctly. Loki, the chance to speak. My brother Lichono, you can add one of the photos there so that I can, initiate that.
What I wanted to say is, yeah, there is a lot of unlearning. The Nangqindi story, I found out a few days ago, actually, ukuthi Ibutho, like she's part of Amabutho, she led Amabutho. And I felt like, what? Like, how could it be true? And my uncle said, the idea of men going to war is European. Women went to war. Our Nangqindi became Nangqindi nje from his understanding because she used to be, I don't know what they call them, the leader of Amabutho. So that was her thing. Oh my God, we were raised to believe that women stayed home while men went to fight, and it's like, no. Actually, the matrilineal thing, or the highest person in our surname was actually Butho, Wazala Amabuto. Most of the things that I said, Gustagazelo Sam, are actually things to describe her because there's a part where it says, "Usebenzisa amakhanda wamadoda uthi iscapa romnyango," or something like that. That's actually something they used to like hyper with, like, and like I think we just need to go even further than 1500s because I don't think she existed back then. But to learn how the system is not ngathini amadoda bokufanele abe and abantu besifazane bebeba they coexisted in many ways to a point that women also went to war. They did not only stay at home. That's all I wanted to add.
No. Thank you. No, I agree. It's much more colorful than we think. History generally, any history of any place is much more colorful. For example, people talk about things like slavery and all those kind of things, and you would think in slavery it was this blacks being enslaved by the whites, but it was not really like that. For example, here in Cape Town, I had mentioned this previous live we had that we had people known as the Free Blacks of the Cape, and the Free Blacks of the Cape could own slaves, and that is something they used for their own benefit to free enslaved people. They would go and buy them. You see, they would go and buy the slaves. So when you think about slavery, you don't think about that. You think about one side, slave masters, the other side, slaves. Oh, life is sad. But there are people who fought to be free and fought to free others. That's something that never spoken about. So any aspect of our history, then whether we talk about war, battles, and all that, there's always aspects that are never mentioned. So yeah, that it speaks to that. And then I know Luphumelele, were we people who constantly engaged in wars? Like, well, there were skirmishes, there were battles, and then there were wars. Skirmishes, maybe you'd find amongst smaller groups of people who would battle over something. But wars, wars involved kings. And kings didn't just wake up and like, everyone is going to war, yay! No. Kings had councils. And councils had men who were in charge of certain things. There were processes in place. So to go to war, you needed the support of your different councils, your different regiments. You have Amakosi under the king. And Amakosi are in charge of specific groups. Yes, the king has the last say, but the king is surrounded by a group of people. And these are the people who actually make the kingdom work. So what I'm saying is, the council didn't just wake up and be like, yay, we're going to war. There were reasons. It serves, though, the colonizer good to peddle the story that, these African nations always waged war against each other. It serves them good because then it can justify their stealing of resources and land, because these people didn't care about those resources anyway. I would also say that if I was an evil, pathologically lying nation of people who goes around stealing and raping and pillaging places and nations, I was going to use exactly that line, that people are constantly waging war against each other. So they need me to save them, and I'm saving them by taking everything that's theirs and everything that makes them who they are. So there are certain narratives that you shouldn't really entertain. On the screen is a man, right? A Kham man. That's a Kham man. That's a Kham man. We are moving now to the next section. This is what people talk about when they say Kwe Kham, the Kham aspect. They're trying to say Kham, which is a nation of people. This is one picture of a Kham man. I want you to notice the hair. We call that kind of hair that's the hair. We call it that type of hair. There's a clan name known as Lima Kwe. Lima Kwe, Shweme, I think they call themselves which means people with this kind of hair. So this is type of hair. This man specifically has that finger there, the little finger. And that little finger has been shungat. We call that ukushung, ukutichu. Ushunguliwe lamne, and we call that ingiti. That is a tradition that in my bloodline we still practice. My mother's bloodline we still practice. I am Mfene, Mtweneng. My mother is Nzoto, Kham. We practice this, the cutting of the finger. And it is important that I point it out because I'm going to share some of the origins of this practice. If you go to the Drakensberg Mountains today, in the Drakensberg Mountains, you'll find skeletons of past ancestors who were buried there. Some were buried in a fetal position on the side of caves. I think they call those things sepulchres. And when these people were buried, and some archaeologists somehow found the skeletons, they found a lot of them with a missing little finger index. They find them with a missing little finger index. Some of them don't cut the little finger, they cut other fingers. So in my clan, for example, the men cut the little finger, as you can see there in the picture, on the left side. The women cut the ring finger on the left side. I'm not sure what on my mother's side, how they do it, but I know my grandfather used to be the surgeon. He used to do it himself. He was also a leather maker. He was a souk, a pala, is cool. So this tradition here is a pure indigenous South African tradition. It is a pure indigenous South African tradition in Haiti. Someone said, Sokwaliwa tsatsu, komo cut too. Yeah, love it. Love it. Ungubane also cut finger. I love it. So someone's asking why the left side. I'm going to explain the origin. The cutting of the finger in and of itself is a very old practice. It's practiced in KZN, it's practiced in old tribes or old nations in places like Free State, Drakensberg area. I don't know if they still practice it today, when the Eastern Cape is practiced as well. There's my cousin there on the comments, Bongo Peteni. She says, we cut the finger next to the pink imapang. Yes, that's the females. Among 20. That's my uncle's child right there. Yes, you see, they cut. I know. Utatomkulu was our grandfather. He used to cut these fingers. Them people also cut. In fact, a lot of the nations amongst Abatembu, because they've got this Tram foundation, Trina Kamela, these are the people of Steve Biko, by the way. Oma, a lot of the nations amongst Abatembu, they cut it. I even know someone who was Kangeba, Majol, they cut the little finger. The origin of the cutting of the finger, it came about, thank you, my sister, thank you. It came about as a mourning ritual. So when a woman gives birth now, in ancient times, when a woman gives birth and the first child does not survive, this child represents a part of this family. Ilungu losapho, which means a part, a joint. Ilungu is a joint. It's a part of a body. So this first child represents a part of this family that has fallen to the ground. Remember, when you give birth and the child does not survive, we call that ukuzalela phansi. You're giving birth to the ground instead of giving birth to the animal skin. Now that child is obviously rested and buried and all that. But now the following children, there needs to be a sign that one of their parts is missing because their sibling is no longer around us. So as a mourning for the sibling, in ancient times, a finger joint would be cut. Chum, chum. And this is not a ritual that was done when you were 5 years old back in the day. It was done immediately. The moment you show your hand, the finger is cut and you will welcome. But I think sometimes when you cut it when a child is too young, sometimes the nail grows back. Sometimes I've heard of cases like that. So it was a ritual to say one of your body members is no longer with you, fell to the ground, and therefore the finger would be cut to symbolize the lost sibling who never survived. This is one of the ways it was done. The other reason it was done is if a senior woman in the nation, the most senior woman of the generation, when she passes on, a specific part, which is the upper joint of one of the fingers, would be cut as well, in mourning that a very important member of us is gone. So they cut, and the cutting, obviously, there's a ritualistic way to do it, and there's a way to deal with that joint and all that. I'm not going to get into that. But this is what I'm getting to, is this is an ancient indigenous practice. And the people who have those indigenous bloodline still maintain these practices. And this is very important because this practice didn't just fall into the hands of the people who do this practice. There was a way that this practice was adopted in ancient times. Now you're telling me, oh no, the blacks, the Bantu invaders from West Africa came here. Did they invade and take this as well? The cutting of the finger. In my experience, invaders don't usually adopt the traditions of the people they invade. It's the other way around. It's the other way around. The movie Icala Lamawele, indeed, Uwele Nobabini, two brothers. Remember, one of them accepted in Haiti before the other one. One of them received the cutting of the finger before the other one, which then was a problem. It was a problem now with seniority. In fact, Uwele is being praised today in the praise names of Amanzoto when they say Ham. Ham means twin, means two. That's why even the Amagdana say Kamela. Kamela means twin as well. So in Haiti then, it was a ritual practice. It was a ritual practice. Very, very important. Oh no, it doesn't stop because it brings healing now to the family. So how then it's maintained over generations in Haiti is that sometimes yagulelo. So sometimes people get sick, and those bloodlines then, have to go and do it. But instead of doing in Haiti when your child is 25 years old, already a woman or a man, it's done when you are still young. So if you're born into the bloodline that does in Haiti, you do it all the way. Generally, nowadays, you just do it, whether you are sick or not. If you come from a bloodline that does it, it becomes tradition of that bloodline. So the people who do it today, in my understanding, for example, at home, you just do it regardless. My children have to do it, all of them, regardless of whether they are sick. But also, if you don't do it, hey, you see, there in the comments, my cousin is sharing a story there. Dad decided not to cut ours, and my oldest brother lost 4 fingers in a freak accident, and we are 4. The brother lost 4 fingers. Hey, the fingers were being demanded, Baba. The fingers were being demanded. Can I tell you something? My the very first born of my father also lost fingers because my father didn't do it. I'm just sharing the truth. My brother Eric, firstborn, he lost fingers. So I understand you, my sister. I know, trust me. And that's another thing. If you don't do it, we know you get accidents on your fingers and stuff like that. And then my sister asked here, my sister Brenda, what if you are married and your husband doesn't? Now remember, in Haiti, it's not from your husband's side. It's you. Remember, you need healing from your family as well, even if you're married. Just because you are married doesn't mean you don't have a family. You understand? Just because you're married does not mean you don't have a family. So it's your bloodline, the people who gave birth to you. The people who gave birth to you. And these things you need to discuss with elders more than anything. Elders have ways. Elders have ways. If let's say you are too old now and they can't cut your finger like that, they'll find a way. They may make a small cut there, a small incision. They may do something. I'm not going to talk deeply about it. You need to speak to the elders. They will know what to do. My sister Brenda is like, you're very concerned about cutting. No, don't worry, man. Our systems are so rich. There's ways to take care of any situation. There's ways to take care of any situation. And someone is asking, umntwana wentombi, do they cut the finger? Well, Indombi has a home, doesn't she now? Indombi is not an entity. Indombi is someone who has a home. So Indombi must go ask the father. What's the next step? The father will know. Remember, guys, this thing depends from family to family. I'm talking about my family, my bloodline. I'm Amfene. So if, let's say, you are Ngubane, you guys will have adopted it in a different way. So I don't want to lie to you on TikTok here and say, go and cut your finger. Don't cut your finger. Hey, hey, please don't cut your finger. Talk to your elders. They will give you direction. In my bloodline, I know exactly how it's done. So you do it the way your people do it. I don't want to see people with bread knives and cutting stuff here. Hey, Sandile said must cut. No, guys. No. I'm going to get arrested. But I wanted to share this. This is a Tram tradition. Now, when we talk about indigenous history, this is what I'm talking about. This is not hearsay. Where you see, I've already explained. Why it's done. I think people need to explain to you. It was a morning ritual when a firstborn child passes away, when an elderly woman in the community passes away, or over time when you are sick as a baby. When you are sick a lot, you're always sick. You're getting accidents on your hands, and your bloodline are people who practice this. You cut. My cousin here, my uncle's child, who's his Bongo, explained how their father, my uncle, didn't do it for them. And her brother lost 4 fingers. exactly the number of siblings. There are 4. The brother lost 4 fingers. Same thing with my own brother. He lost fingers. I'm not going to get into the details of how that happened. But what I can say to those who didn't cut and are worried, izinto zesintu ziyakhuzwa. Izinto zesintu ziyathethelwa. You need to speak as the bloodline. Ziyangxengxezelwa ke xa sithetha isintu. But as I said, I can't speak because I'm not of that bloodline. But if you sit down with the elders, they must speak about these things. Thank you, my brother viewer. Thank you. Amago. So, my brother Lee, please post the next picture. Please share the next picture so that we can delve deeper now into this, our people. Because when we talk, people think we're just taking these things from our thoughts. This is Utalingebo. This is one of the ancestors of the Tembu King. This is one of the ancestors of the Tembu King. When we talk about the phenotype of South Africans, I think people take that very lightly because more times than not, you can see a South African from the looks. And this comes from the contributing bloodlines that make who we are. You understand? This is the Dalinjebo, one of the ancestors of the family. Please post another one, my brother. I think the king. So that we can see. Eskolweni, what did I learn? Oh no, at school I did science. And then I went and did business science. I specialized in actuarial science for a year at UCT. I didn't like insurance, and then I did finance. After 4 years in finance, I did 1 year in software programming, because when we were doing actuarial science, we were introduced to programming. So I did 1 year in that. So I'm in tech now. I'm in tech, but that's not even related to. But yeah,
My brother,
yes.
apologies. We have some issues, but yeah, there's a few pictures that I can't post.
Okay.
Size
No, it's
issues.
fine. Okay, it's fine. I'll send you more. You can't post the Mandela, the one with a group of calm people,
Okay, let me check that.
the ones who were arrested. It's very important, that one. Oh, by the way, that man on the screen is called King. That man on the screen is called King. King lived in what is now Lesotho. Oh yes, thank you, brother. After this, you can go back to King, but I'm going to talk about this. This group of men that you see right here are calm people. And I think it's imperative that we look at them very, very clearly. And tell me you don't see someone that you can recognize somewhere there. This is the bloodline of foundational South Africans. The people who built the foundation of the bloodlines of South Africa, together with Karanga societies and Urewe, Kalundu cultures. This bloodline right there on the screen are Kham people. These were imprisoned Kham people. When you look at the coat of arms in South Africa, it says means the people who are separated come together. It means people. Means to come together. These gentlemen spoke that language right there. You would find names like Khabo, find names like Khankhato, Khankhaso, Umkhankaso. You know Umkhankaso, eh? Khankaso. You'd find names like Ngani. You find names like Uma amongst these people. And we still have some of those names. Uma is a name that still exists to this day. Tame, which means Tami. Tamsak, Au, Tamsad. These are the names. And it is important that we preserve this. You can't be calling yourself John here. You are not John. You are not Andrew. We are not Andrew. Change that name. Go back to being Ngane. And now what happens is that some of these names and the words that these foundational societies, our ancestors used, get codified into multiple languages over thousands of years. So you ask yourself why Chivenda doesn't have clicks, why Sepedi doesn't have clicks. It does, you don't see them. I say umnqwazi, eMotswana says mungwatsi. I say twe for a stone, eMotswana says lintswe, eMosotho says lijwe. We say che or ke for a stone, umXhosa uthi ilitye, umZulu uthi itye. Same thing, absolutely same thing. In Khegwi, you say na baba, na baba, which means I am with father. Ngino baba, which means I am with father. In Khegwi again, you say na bawa, I am with father again. In isiXhosa, ndino bawo, I am with father. That's one sentence, very simple. Nakuru, I am sick. Nyagula, I am sick. And these are things you find when you go around digging. These are true pictures. These are true pictures of the Kham people. And there's many of them. I'm gonna look at the comment now. I saw the name Khamisa in Cape Town, and I think it was Kham woman. And I thought this should be Khamisa. Oh no, actually Khamisa is it's Kham, not Kham, it's Kham for water. Kham. Instead of Kham, there's Kham, which is these people. Tambuki, Tembuke. And then there's Kham. So it's Khamisa, not Khamisa, but Khamisa. Khamisa means sweet water for all. Khamis, sweet waters, not salty waters, sweet waters. Sa for everyone. So Khamisa means sweet water for all. It's actually the name of a river. The river that flowed from waterfront to the, no, not from Table Mountain to the Table Bay. So when you're in town, in Cape Town, you have Table Mountain, there's a stream, a river that used to flow from Table Mountain. I think it's still there, but it's not truly visible. From Table Mountain all the way through the city center, and it used to go straight to the Table Bay. In that river, there was a group of people who lived there, and those people used to be called Amakwa or Amakwa, which means the river people, or Kasons, the river people. And therefore, these people are Kamisa. These are the people of Cape Town. People like Auchomao, which means the man who swims with fish. People like Krotoa belong to this society. This is the society that used to trade. Even before 1652, they traded with some ships that used to pass, because the ships were always passing in Cape Town way before 1652. They traded with the ships that used to pass. Harry, they called him Harry the Strandloper, but it's just Harry, that's his name, Harry or Auchumao. He actually spoke Dutch and English, traded a lot with some of the ships that passed there. So Kamisa then refers to the descendants of those communities. So you will see a lot of revivalist communities in Cape Town using the name Kamisa, because the foundational societies of what is now Cape Town. It could be Kuri Kikwa, it could be Kuri Kikona, could be Ohokwa. Ohokwa is the people with sharp cheeks, very sharp cheeks. It could be Kurikwa, etc. All the different groups, and you can see in the comments. So that's Kamisa. That's Kamisa right there. My brother Lee, would you be able to change the picture? I want to see Mandela. I want to see Sarah Batman. Okay, I'm not sure what it
Mandela
was.
doesn't want to appear today.
Ish. All right, no, it's fine.
Let
But
me see,
Mandela
but I
himself,
can't find him. I find him, but
no,
size again.
It's all right. It's all right. Mandela himself was he did some DNA testing and the Tram element came out. The Tram element came out, one of his ancestors. But for those of us who already know, we were not shocked because around the Tsomo River, in what is now the Eastern Cape, around the Tsomo River, you would have had a group of people there, Kham descendants, whom the Europeans called the Snese Hottentots or the Little Chinese. And these are today became part of the Tembu nation from which Mandela comes from. So the Kham DNA, then not a shock. But what shocked me was Desmond Tutu now, because Desmond Tutu is Umaduna, Ugubev. He had also some Kwe ancestry. They call it Bushman ancestry. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I was shocked to see Desmond Tutu because, the people of Desmond Tutu, most of the time people assume the original is Sutu, forgetting that in what is now the Sutu area was very strongly Khwaikwe, Khegwi, Kube, and Atsi, full of Atsi and Khegwi people. So Desmond Tutu, Maduna people would have lived in those vicinities as well. And therefore, when that Kwaikwe DNA comes through, it makes complete sense. In fact, Brother Lee, are you able to show the picture of King King? There's Madiba right there. He looks exactly like Mama Katrina Esau, eh? Mama Katrina Esau, the mama who speaks Nuki. Looks exactly the same. Yeah, there on the screen, that is King King right there. Please show my brother. That's King King. You see, King King, he literally lived in the same house as Enge. Enge is Muros, Mrena Muros, the king of the Baputi nation. Muros was killed in 1878 by the British. He was killed in 1878 by the British. And this is King. Now, for someone who knows history of Baputi, I looked at some of the lineages. And they include King King as the descendants of Kenge, Muros. I'm not sure how true that is, but I know within Muros' very own lineage, there was very strong Kwaikwe blood. And just look at King King. Just look at King King.
Good evening, host. Can I comment it?
Yeah, you can comment.
Good evening, everyone. The linguistics of South Africa and its history, which affect the Khoi people and the so-called Sotho Tswana and Nguni people. It's said that it's been politicized right now. But, on your side, you come from the linguistic side. On my side, I usually focus on culture, because I think culture is longer lasting to show the relations these people had. Since we had no written records, so we usually follow on what are the practices which can be commonly found within the Khoi and the San communities and the so-called Nguni communities and Sotho communities. What I read was that usually people which the Nguni people will call Umafungwas, the older sister of the house, was quite also, I read in the book that they were also venerated. Those people had a lot of say in the household within the Khoi groups. Another thing was that I found was that the thing of separating the degrees of relatedness of relatives. So amaXhosa would say umkhuluwa nomninawa, amaZulu azothi mnewethu umnawami, to separate the younger brother and the older brother. It is common among the Khoi people also to separate who is older and give them a different name. We venerate also in the Nguni culture the what they would call the Khoi, the sun god, which is a praying mantis. In Zulu, praying mantis people will recognize a praying mantis and see it as some sort of a return of an ancestor within the household. Ugogo. So, Europeans will talk about this thing and say, these people are separate, they have no relations, these people are enemies, we're fighting, killing each other. But these people share a lot of culture and the languages do not lie. And the genetics have proved it. So you just sit there and just say, okay, well, people are just going to say whatever they want. But the history, the genetics, and the culture, for me, I just wish, it's just that people focus more on linguistics. I think the cultural aspect of what we share with the Khoi, I think it is the thing that will put a definite stamp that these are our relatives. They are part of ours. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Tasom, I'm gonna give you a chance. I just wanna say something quickly. Thank you, Babula Mula. I appreciate that. I think you said some very important things, and I think they will be addressed with time. Unfortunately, we can only discuss so much in one live because we also have things to do and go back to work and all that. But I will absolutely make sure we talk about those things because those things, as you said, are probably the most current right now. The culture is one that was maintained properly. Culture was able to be maintained for much longer than other things. So I totally agree. But my main focus with language is because there are some factors that have a reason that, okay, well, because Chivenda doesn't have cliques or CPD doesn't have cliques, then blah, blah, blah. What I want to get people to see is that it's not about the cliques. The entire basis of the language, click or no click, means it is an indigenous Southern African language, a foundational language to the rest of the African languages. So if my people can get to see that, I'm not talking about cliques here, forget about cliques. The name Dube doesn't have cliques. It is a queer name. Sandile doesn't have cliques. Tukan doesn't have cliques. Zulu doesn't have cliques. Tulu, that's where we should get to. That point where, what is that now? A mustache. Thanks, my sister. We should get to that point where we realize that it's bigger than what we see. It goes back to the foundation of the entirety of our cosmology, our language, and our culture. So we'll get to the culture. Someone asked the true name of Sarah Bartman. Firstly, her name was Seura or Siula. Siula or Seura, right? The name means to hover something. In fact, there's even a nation in Botswana, in the Basarwa nations there, they are called Mahura Kwe. Even amongst the Mampondo, this word exists as a name of one of their ancestors, Usiwula. Umtwa Kasiwula is someone that exists in Mampondo, but that's for another day. So that was Sarah Bartman's name. Sarah Bartman was not, what was that woman in the comments saying? That woman was saying Sarah Bartman was Ora. No, Sarah Bartman was not Ora. Sarah Bartman was Gunukwa. Sarah Bartman was Gunukwa. So the people today, such as Siyakolisi, Lucanio Am, those are Gunukwa descendants. Sarah Bartman would have fallen in that group. But she's further south. Where she comes from now, it's called Sarah Bartman district, I think so. She had come close next to a river called Khamtuos River today. She came from that region. But another old name of the river is Ukelekwa. Siula in my language, it means many things. Ne? One, it means the one who hovers above things, the hovering one, uyahula, or the one who's broad in their ways. Secondly, also means the one who brings people with them. Uola. You see, uola, to collect things. So it means the hoarder of things, the one who brings things together with them. So it means along those lines. Hurutse, hey. I don't know actually. I don't know, but I know within the Hurutse group, there are some of my people there, Batweneng, within the Bahurutse. I know there are a lot of Asi ancestors there, Basarwa, within the Bahurutse. I think maybe someday we need to talk about the Basutu Batswana groups, including the Bapedi groups. We need to go deep into actually dispelling some of the stuff, because I think not much is being done even in that sphere. But back to the gentleman on the photo. So someone is asking, this is by Francois Meider or whoever. How do we know it's reliable? It's very easy. Go to that region where King comes from and look at the other people who are there. You understand? You go to that region, you look at the other people that are there. If they look like this, it's more likely. And I can say it's definitely more likely. It's definitely more likely because even Murena Murose, I have his depiction as well. I have his depiction. And Kring Kring, this is not what we know about Kring Kring. This is not the gravity of what we know. We know more about Kring Kring from oral records. It's just that I needed to depict how Kring Kring must have looked like. Kring Kring spoke Sephuthi. Kring Kring spoke Khwai Khwe dialect. Sephuthi today is spoken in places like Southern Lesotho, Kuting, Achasnek. It's spoken in places like Mohale's Hook in Lesotho. It's spoken in Matatiele. I don't know if they still speak it in Heschel and Sterkspruit and Mount Fletcher, but I also speak it a bit. So Kring Kring provide a list of words to some of the scholars who were there in those areas in the 1800s. He provided a bunch of words which he translated from Sesotho, I think, to Sephuthi and Khwai Khwe. But one thing Kring Kring mentioned was Keng Akeng Teng, who was venerated as, the highest deity. Keng Akeng Teng. Keng is a word that means good. Also means a lord, a master. You find this word in his name, Keng or King. You find this word Keng also in Murosi's name, Kenge, which means rich man, rich lord. Murosi himself was so rich because he used to make weapons. He used to make weapons, was so good at making weapons, and would sell them for cows. He became so rich. Therefore, he was called Kenge, the rich man. In Murosi's household, this man, King, stayed there inside Murosi's house. This is not people who are trying to be Kwe. People are not claiming being Kwe. There's nothing to benefit from claiming to be Kwe. These are people who have a lived reality of this. We are not trying to be anything here. This is a lived reality. We're not going to have people whose ancestors came with ships trying to tell people whose ancestors have been here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years and built everything from the ground up, who those people should be. If you have a problem with people's truth and identities, maybe you should jump off that cliff. So anyway, King stayed in Murosi's house. King and Kenge, there's a link to the name Kengeba. Kengeba was the king of the Amampondo Mise, who were close allies to the Baputi, who were close allies to the Gangwe people. Kengeba himself means good lord. The name Kengeba means good lord. Fikile Mbalula's ancestors. Can't you see the Bushman blood in Fikile Mbalula? Can't you see that he has Gangwe ancestry and Pondomise ancestry? There where the Amampondomise are today, in the place called Utolo, there's a river Ingo. On the banks of that river Ingo, there are caves with drawings. Do you know where the people who drew in those caves are? They are there in the villages. They did not disappear. The idea that the people who drew in the caves must be gone somewhere is completely bollocks. The people who draw in the caves are the same people who still live in those areas. But how did they lose their knowledge? Ask Makokha. Makokha was interviewed in the 1970s, a woman. They asked her, why do you not know the meaning of these drawings on the caves? But your father was the one who was drawing. Makhoka is a Ganga bush woman, by the way, who's Mpondo Mise. They asked Makhoka, how is it that you don't know the meaning of these things? Makhoka's like, no, you can't just know the meaning of the drawings on the wall. You have to be initiated. Like Ukutwasa. You can't just know things. You have to go through the process. So drawing on the wall was an art. It was an art form, a profession in and of itself. Just like hunting was a profession. Just like making baskets was a profession. It's not something you just wake up and know. No, the elders take you and train you to know these things. So Umakhoka himself was the last. Makhoka was the last descendant of the Ganga Bushmen of Utsolo who had any idea of knowledge about some of those things. Umakhoka had ingqiti in the middle finger. Her finger was cut off. Now you're gonna find some idiot who's claiming things that they just found out in 2017, telling Makhoka, no, you wanna be queer. Suddenly you wanna be queer. No, Makhoka doesn't wanna be queer. Makhoka has always been. You think she's called Makhoka for fun? hey, these people. Why do you think the Amampondo say bangamatolo mthwakazi? Why do you think the people of Simang say bangabathwa abaluthuli, abathwa bezinduli? Why? No, man, these people must stop playing. These people must stop playing. And you know the weapon that we have? The weapon that we have is not shouting on social media. The weapon that we have is truth. And it's not going to stop. It's going to keep on hitting them hard. So this is King. King told them about King Akeng Teng. King Akeng Teng, the most respected deity of that region. What does King Akeng Teng mean? The good master, the rich master, the good lord of all things. This is exactly the same you find in Kamata, the long-standing one. Usmagad. And you have Mvelingangi after that, the firstborn. Or the one who's been there from the beginning, the one who appeared in the beginning. My brother, let's change the picture. If you could show me the king of Abatembu, I would really appreciate it. Someone in the comments mentioned. No, they know that they found us here. They know it. It's not like these people don't know. They know that they found us here. And they also know that they were very much involved in the commando corps, killing our people for their lands. They were used. They were literally the first groups to be used as soldiers. They were first groups to be used
My brother,
as mercenaries. Yeah.
it's one of those peaks I can't.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's fine. It's all right. It's all right. I'm going to continue. You see there, Kumashlubi, I've been mentioning this. I've been mentioning it this past few days. It's important that all these nations, all these nations that exist today, it's important that you understand that just because you're a nation doesn't mean you were born from the same two original ancestors. Nations were formed through alliances. So if you all have an allegiance to umlilwana kasenza ngakhona usigidi shaka ushaka kashayeki ilembe leqamanye amalembe ngokukhalipha unodumo ehlezi kamenzi. If you are all swearing allegiance to Ushaka, so you are all the people of Ushaka, doesn't matter if you are Sotho originally, like abantu bakwaZuma, Ngamalala, they were of the Sotho-Tswana group originally. It doesn't matter. But if you swear allegiance to Ushaka, WaKwaZulu, you become OwaKwaZulu, and therefore Umzulu. Not by blood, but by allegiance. This is a very important piece of information that we need to know. It's like that in all nations. Kunjalo kwaXhosa, kunjalo eMampondomseni, kunjalo eMampondweni, kunjalo eMahlutshini, kunjalo kubaSotho, kunjalo kubaTswana. All these groups you see today did not just merge as these big mega groups. They formed because of allegiance, including Basotho. That's why they venerate Tababusiu, because it acted as a refuge for them in tough times. They went there and collected amongst each other, including Baputi. Within Baputi, you still have Bafukeng. Within Baputi, you have Abakwamkabela. oThedza, umkhonfo lobomvu, oDzakwa, emadvodza langadzakwa butshwala, adzakwa itikhali temanye emadvodza. You still have Onyatsi, you still have eMathedza, amamfene, you still have Mablani Bagalanga, you still have amakhakheni, ebathu labangatalwa kufati, labayehlile batheuka elitulwini, batokothe dzizinini eliphasini. These are multiple groups of people who come together. Now, what happened to some of the independent queer societies? Because queer societies were already foundational to our existence as humans, but there were also independent nations that merged into the modern day nations. What happened to them? They became part of the clans. Those who were close to Chief Dumisa, they became Abakwaduma. Those who were close to Kwadlomo, Emahluchini, they became Abakwadlomo. Some became Abakwamsimang, some became Abakwaklaba. Those who were close to Bakwena became Bakwena and Abakwangwenya. This is a very simple thing to understand. It's a practice that has been adopted for centuries. Where people take the royal clan names, they don't even go and complicate it. They take the royal clan names and they become part of the royal clan. That's why King was in the same house as the king. In fact, in King Morosi's household, one of his uncles was called Kang. Think about it. Kang, King, come on, guys. Come on.
I want to add something. You know, the thing called nation is a fluid thing.
Yes.
It depends where it's found or at what time. It could speak different languages at a certain time. It could be ruled by different people from a different culture at a certain time. It just so happens at that time, who is the ruling? He would rule people of different ancestry and people coming from different places. I don't know why people are so hypocritical, because this is the same status is in Europe. People who are French now, some of them have German ancestry. People who are English now have German ancestry.
Yes.
People who are Italians now have some of them have German ancestry. It's not a foreign idea that nations are fluid.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you know what? Even here in South Africa, the so-called Afrikaners, only 40% of them were actually the original Dutch descendants. A lot of them are French Huguenots. A lot of them are English. They are Germans. Yes, they do tend to be Germanic. Some of them are Russians. A lot of them are Jews. Helen Zille is a Jew. Rob Herzog is a Jew. Helen Joseph was a Jew. Joe Slovo was a Jew. A lot of the South Africans who claim whiteness now, some of them were Italian. You have Mazzoni, Natasha Mazzoni, that guy Mazzotti. A lot of these people. Thank you, Observer. Thank you so much. I want to give Tasom a chance to say something before I go too deep. Tasom.
What has impressed me is what the recent comment up in support of your statement, which stated that the migration from the Central Africa is at about that, and there is some true in it, but not totally true, because if that was the case, then we wouldn't have as landmarks that we do have today, in which when we see their names and we try to break up and understand the etymology, it is the etymology that we can still understand even in the present day. Then it means that we have passed those trains in our way to here, but I want to highlight that according to my view, it is partially true. For instance, you can take the Libombo Ridge, you can take the Libombo Mosque there at Swaziland.
Yeah, I'm listening. Talk to us. We are listening. We are ready. What's happening now? Okay, it's fine. I will assume that the commenter wanted to say there are certain landmarks that when you look at, they are not in our current location. You see, now that I don't think has anything to do with a Bantu migration. That has nothing to do with that. Right now, if you go to Sudan, right now as I'm speaking to you, to a site called Nakada, it is regarded as the founding area for ancient Kemet. Nakada is regarded as where the founding fathers of Kemet lived and were buried. What happened is there are graves there, and the way the people were married, that were buried there, exactly as how Southern African queer people buried their own. The DNA that was tested from those skeletons that were found and the pottery is exactly Southern African, and this is Sudan. So it is very imperative that we understand that we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of years here. There is no place anywhere in the universe where people are going to stay in one remote place for the entirety of their existence. You take queer sample DNA right now in 2025, see if it's not going to lead you to East Africa, and see if it's not going to lead you to West Africa, see if it's not going to lead you to parts of North Africa. In fact, you take some Black American DNA and see if there won't be bits and pieces of Southern African hunter-gatherers. So what this tells you is that humans, generally Homo sapiens, since the advent of time, have moved. That movement is never labeled the Caucasian migration, the Bushman migration. No, that movement is called the appropriate names. One community moved from this place to this other place because of some natural event. Another community moved from this place back and forth, because we are all the owners of Africa. A person who's moving from Western Cape 800 years ago to somewhere in Mpumalanga that was not called the Hottentot migration. It was just one community moving because of whatever reason. They can come back later because that is part of our culture. To give you an example, when Jan van Riebeeck arrived in 1652, he found some people, because it was April, he found some people there in what is called Cape Flats today. Cape Flats is a flat piece of land surrounded by mountains on one side and the False Bay on another side. It's full of sand. So when he arrived there, he found people who were grazing and their animals were grazing there. A few months later, he went to the same area. The people were not there. And then they were like, oh, there's no people. This is our land. But the people had gone elsewhere because it was winter now. So they understood that in winter, the best place to graze is not this one. This is good for summer. We can graze our cows here. And then for winter, we move to another location to graze our cows. If there's a locust problem, they're going to move to another location to do this. If there's a problem with the water in this area, they're going to move to another location to do this. Why is that not called the Cape Town Hottentot migration? Oh, the Hottentots went and invaded this land in this region. It's not called that because there is no political motivation to label that as that. There's no need then to push that. The Bantu migration is very political. First and foremost, there is no foremost scholar of Bantu migration that is actually an indigenous person. All the primary scholars that are being referenced in this are always people of European origin who are funded by European organizations, who are writing for European audiences. It was not created for you. Bantu migration was not created for you. It was not about you. It was never for you in the first place. When those books were written, when those theories were formulated, you were not even a thought in their minds. In fact, they thought you were some percentage human and not fully human. And therefore, you couldn't even amount to existing. To them, it was like arriving in a piece of land full of monkeys. And therefore, they could just grab it. But then over time, they had to change now that story. They had to change the story. Oh no, these people are actually not from here. They're actually not from here. Why do you think they changed so many times? It was Hottentots, it was Kafirs, it was natives, it was blacks. It was Bantu or whatever they tried to label. What kind of people have so many labels? What kind of sober people have so many labels? And they all just keep on accepting, yes, we are that, yes, we are that, yes, we are that. You know, Jacob Zuma once narrated a story. I'm going to digress a bit. He narrated the story, I think he was arriving in Joburg. And this Afrikaner person is saying, by the way, they're not even Afrikaners, but this Afrikaner person is saying something to him. And he's asking, the Afrikaner is asking, what are you saying? And the security guard, who's Zulu, is translating for Zuma, Utini kafir. Utini kubasi kafir. Kafir utini kubas. Zuma was so confused. That's how they worked. You understand? They label us and then they use those things against us through our people. So for me, noticing that Ilibombo, we know what Libombo means is. There's nothing wrong with that. It's our land. Libombo is our land. In fact, you can go as far as North Africa. If there's a landmark there in North of Africa that you can understand in your language, that's good. It shows you are indigenous to this land. That's why they called you native. Native means you are of birth here. Native means indigenous. Native and indigenous are not two different things. They're literally synonyms. So,
Sandile, can I please come in, my brother? You know,
yeah.
what I wanted to say is this, because I see people there asking, are we then Bantu, are we not Bantu?
Pause, yeah.
Firstly, that label is a European label.
The Bantu, yeah.
There were never people who was a nation of Bantu.
True.
It's a label which has come with Europeans to separate Africans from Africans. It's a linguistic label, but which can, what I want to say is this. The people you find in South Africa, when the Europeans came here, were made in South Africa. Because outside of South Africa, you do not find Nguni groups. All the groups you find outside South Africa are people who migrated during the wars. Nguni language cannot be found. You can find similarities to it, but you cannot find it exactly, which tells us it was made within the borders of South Africa. The people of South Africa were made within the borders of South Africa. That's what I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you. And guys, remember, I've been saying this so many times, ne? Asiko isizwe. There is no actual nation you can call Bantu or Kwe. That's just a label to mean human. Siludidi lwabantu in separation to animals. Siludidi lwabakwe in separation to animals. Not in separation to you, my fellow human being. Anyway, on the screen right there, that woman you see on the screen there is a woman called Umakhoka. Umakhoka speaks isiXhosa. Umakhoka, well, she passed away now, but she spoke isiXhosa. Her entire family spoke isiXhosa. Umakhoka is a gangre in terms of a nation yakhe. Ngokwesizwe uphuma kumagangre. Her indigenous language is gangre. Umakhoka, at the time of this interview that was done in the 70s, Umakhoka was speaking isiXhosa with elements of gangre. She was the one explaining the rock art to the European invaders who were there to ask about it. My brother, please put the other one. Please put Umanqindi. Umanqindi, the Manqindi descendants who are in Bondoland. So Umakhoka was in the Eastern Cape in a place called Tsolo. Now, these other ones are descendants of rainmakers emampondweni. Abatwa who were rainmakers emampondweni. This is why you find clan names such as Gwahu, Uge, clan names such as Mukwe. These are very clear, clear evidence of the presence of these people. The picture that was there are the descendants of Umanqindi, a rainmaker, a bushman rainmaker, which means umthwa, which means umntu. Luhlobo lomntu elingumthwa. He was a rainmaker. His descendants were rainmakers. I don't know where they are today, but this was, I think, in the 1970s as well. Very, very recent, actually. They should still be alive somehow. We are talking about things that are tangible here, places you could go and visit and see what I'm talking about. We are not talking about theories. Oh no, I'm light skinned, so I'm queer. That's complete and utter nonsense. We've shown you pictures of Trump people, very dark. And even if they are very light, it's fine. Because this is a true human existence. All the different shades you can find. Because we are literally the most ancient of the human bloodline. Now, abantwana bakamanqindi, abathwa, who were rainmakers, abanisi bemvula. My brother, I sent you a picture of my father. I want you to put my father there. It's very important that you put my father. And I sent you a picture of my aunt as well. You see that man right there is my father. And the woman, the light-skinned lady, that's my blood sister. That's my biological sister. They are both still alive. My father was born in a place called Anga. Right? Just look at my father properly. Don't rush there. Don't rush. I know he's handsome. But look at him properly. He was born in Anga, the place of the Elend, the river of the Elend, the valley of the Elend. You know what the Afrikaners called him? You know what the Afrikaners called him? They didn't call him by his name. They were busy calling him Bossman. Yay, Bossman, Bossman. So he had to adapt to that. To this day, my mother still tells the story. Your father's name is Bossman. But his birth name was Kunku, which is very hard to find in any language except Kwe languages. And at the bottom there is my biological sister. You just have to look. You don't have to go too far. Just look at them. Eh? That's my nephew there. That's my niece there at the back, looking there on the side. That's my niece. Her clan name is Icha Kanolo. I don't have to say anything more. That's my father, Kunku, son of Skova, son of Gokoza, descendant of Tugan. And this picture now, that's my father's sister, the short one there. Look at them. That's my family, blood family. That's my father's sister, the short one. She's late now for the past 5 years. No fake is her name. On the other side is my cousin, Nonkai. Proper bloodline now. And you're gonna have some person
You know,
with my
you know what,
Indian roots
you
to
know,
come
you
and
know,
tell me
you
who
know
I
what,
am.
my brother.
Yeah.
You know what? You know, the Bible says, for the lack of knowledge, my people are lost. You know, our people are lost because they don't have knowledge. You've got outsiders telling our people they are foreigners in the land of their own forefathers. You know, I
Yes.
saw a documentary. It wasn't a documentary, a travel vlog by some famous Ghanaian person. And this Zimbabwean guy was narrating the history of Cape Town.
Don't stop doing that. Come sit here.
And this
Yes,
gentleman was
brother.
saying, all these people, these black people you see here are newcomers. The only people who belong here are the Khoisan. Now, this is a narrative which was pushed by the Nationalist Party to say that black people, this land is not yours. We took it from you and we're gonna keep it. It's been an old time. People were moved to the homelands for this very reason, to deny them the rights of belonging to the land of their forefathers. What I'd say to black people in South Africa is this: go check the culture, read up, go check the culture practiced by the Khoi people, and go and see, will you find similarities within your own culture? The marriage ceremonies. I read up a book which told me that Khoi girls used to, when they came of age, used to be secluded and put in a hawk some of that culture survives within some colored communities. And that is exactly what the Xhosa and the Zulu people do when in Tonjana, a young girl comes of age. Exactly. We practice the same culture because we are the people. We are the same people. So people who don't know and have not read up their own history, do not know themselves, will find themselves losing their country because they told they belong somewhere. The system seems to have, our host is maybe having a problem.
Can I please interject before we continue?
Yeah, please.
Because I see that we are now currently leaning in the cultural side, in which it started linguistically. And my question of interest currently is the linguistic side of it. So, what I've been observing, there's been this misconception in the naming of the children, how it was named then. It's so different to how currently in naming works, like giving a name to a child. Also, when you naming of the places, naming of the towns and the mountains, when you listening to these names, they currently make no sense if you do not have that deeper etymology background. And some would argue and say, no, our people just named for the sake of having a name to refer to that certain person or a place, in which I find that it is untrue, because you can never call a place just for the sake, or a person for the sake of that person to have a name. But what we should rather do is to try and break down these words and try to break them. You actually get to see that there is even relation with the other groups. That is even seen in our language. If you can take our current language, you take our language 50 years back, some words that were used by the poet S.E.K. Mqhayi, umzekelo xa ezawuthi xa ebonga umhlekazi uyintsati zizigodlwana zemazendala, and one would ask, what is isigodlo? Because wazi mhlambe elakwaZulu igama elithi means a total tramping, a horn that was blown by the messenger of the king. Now, I wanted you to kind of help me and give a breakdown of these two words. Ukukrola nokuloba both means scribing. Then, clans. There is this clan between of the Amazizi people, bathi bangamahlwane, abanye bathi bangamantlwane, and what it means. And also some brothers of some clan, the Duna clan, that they say Kusidlova nosidloyi. What does it mean? Because to me, I in the sense when someone comes and say, no, those were just names and they meant nothing. It was named for the sake of naming. Yes.
Can we hear from... My. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I have no idea what's going on. Okay. No, the live is not right. All the lives that I've had here, we had 4 lives already. That's about 12 hours worth of content. All those lives are going to YouTube. I already posted them there. They are literally already there. I'm just gonna keep on posting. I've already posted one. Tomorrow I'm gonna post on YouTube. Kumka is saying something. Please. Okay. Kumkani, are you there? All right. My brother Kurwa Kausep, would you like to say something?
Brother Amula, he said something very mouthfully that on our previous live as well with Spuda, we were trying to address didn't even want the opportunity to listen to. But as I'm saying, I just want to give people a chance to speak. Then we can have issues, because the issues that you have brought, my brother, they are very sensitive. Even as I see Lee had a profile picture of my father as well, having a clip from your Khum people as well. The the crux is, my brother, there's a lost data that people have been misled with, because of we are dealing with a hegemony culture, you see. And you see the example you made with your group, your father, when you say he was called Bossman. It is true. Even by looking at your profile picture of your father, it reminds me of my father's eldest brother's son, Upelandaba. Pelandaba was also called Bossman because of his appearance as well, you see. And my father is called Butiki, right? It's called, even to this day, I call him my father like that. But because of that name, it was inherited from his father. They used to refer him as Buti, and then him was Butiki. So amongst Kora, even amongst many Kwe, that name is very common, you see. So hence I say, what you are reiterating, my brother, is very sensitive, because it's bound by hegemony. Look, for example, Hatsi people are found in Botswana, they are found in Lesotho, they are found in the Eastern Cape, and we have been hegemonized. For now, for that matter, when you're in the Eastern Cape, you are called Mxhosa. When you're in Lesotho, you are called Mosotho. When you are in Botswana, but Botswana, they have still surfaced their own culture, even though culturally, by a country called Botswana, they still refer as Botswana. Do you understand? So it's the same as me myself as well. my people here in the eastern differently, but when it comes to this side, it's a different issue where I am. And then when it comes where my people are coming from, it's a different issue, even in Botswana as well. To see my brother, I want us to have discussions where I want our brothers to extensively mention to speak so that we can educate, because there's a lot of data that needs to be pressed out there, that needs to be pressed to people so that people should learn, because a lot of people have no way of researching, because we want to also instill this culture of learning indigenous culture, indigenous languages. Abantu bethu who are Xhosa speakers or Sotho speakers, they must learn Akan, they must learn Gwenkia, they must learn Kwemana or Kwedam or Kwe Guap, in order for them to resurface and delve culture that they have no clue. Maybe they understand this culture from an oral point, but culture from a linguistic point, they should know that these cultures, these languages, they are ancient. These languages were utilized in the past. But my brother, I want to give all other brethren to speak and to say something so that we can help each other. For if they want to ask us questions, I'll answer them on my base. But the discussion is very warm, my brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man. Can I just ask, can you guys hear me much better now? I tried to sort out the network thing. Can you guys hear me much better? Can you hear me in real time? The guests can respond if you guys can hear me now, because
I can hear you. I can hear you.
okay, I think I'm
You are
back
clear.
now.
Can hear you.
I think I'm back. Okay. Yeah, no, it does happen sometimes. The network is just, yeah, I don't know if maybe there's someone there in the background reporting or whatever, but it starts acting weird. So thank you, my brother, Daru Urwa Kauseb. Thank you, Acheseb. Thank you, Titiba. We appreciate. I am related to this gentleman. I'm related through my great paternal grandmother, Umam Ngosini. Umam Ngosini is from the Xhosa people, who are part of the Karmakais Ora house, Ora kingdom. So he is from the Xhosa people, Amaqioshe. We call them Qioshe, Titiba, or Gaba generally. So my paternal great grandmother comes from those people. She was of the Tatangu last name. Tatangu meaning horse. I think they were horse riders. We have Tatangu who were horse riders. We have Abi people who were riders. They used to ride horses and cows as well. So I am related to him by blood. That's Ora aspect of me. You see, someone mentioned something that the name Kola and Loba both mean to ride. I couldn't get some of the stuff, but I'm sure you guys kept the conversation going. But I want to go back to the question of migrations and movements and all that. We need to understand that, first and foremost, before 1652 or even before the 1500s, the people of this land, this vast land now called Africa, knew who they were, and they knew who the neighbors were. That is what we're doing now. They used to do even better. These people traded amongst each other. There's trade routes that are traceable from as far as Cape Town to as far as Emampondweni. People from Emampondweni had access to people in what is called Natal. In fact, I mentioned it in my last live. In there's a name for Zulu people. In Korakobab, there's a name for Tswana people. In Korakobab, there's a name for Karanga people. How could this be that these people have names if they didn't know each other? Do you guys understand? How could it be that these people knew each other's customs, were able to, because the Kora called the Zulu the people with pierced ears. They call the Tswana people Birikwa or Birina people. You see, you've got the Masara people and other Kui cultures call royal Batswanas or high class Batswanas Gona people, Bakoni. So it's important that we understand that there was definitely movement from place to place. This is not a sin. It is not a crime for people to move. So the fact that in your culture you reference Libombo, what's wrong with that? What is wrong with referencing Libombo? What is wrong with having some graves of some kings in Libombo? What is wrong with having some graves of some kings in places that are in other provinces now? There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually good. That should be your argument to say, we've been here for so long, we've even explored this land. You have Kora people who have their roots in where the source of the Orange River is, around Free State, around Botswana, around Lesotho, around Northern Cape. But you have Kora people in the Eastern Cape. You have Kora people in the Western Cape. How did that happen? Same thing with Kham. They're all over the place. This is the reality of being an indigenous person. You will be all over the place. So it's not a shock that uzofumana abantu bakashabalala eSwatini, uzofumana abantu bakashabalala KwaZulu Natal, uzofumana abantu bakashabalala in Eastern Cape. Why is that a proof that we come from somewhere else? That's not a proof. If that's a proof of anything, it's a proof of the fact that you've been here for so long. It can't be a proof that people come from somewhere else. And also that coming from somewhere else, who decides what is somewhere else to begin with? Now we can talk about regions and blocks of places in the same land. In the same land, under the same king, people still had their pieces of land. People had their pieces of land. Different groups of people. And that doesn't mean those people didn't they got along. They were one group of people, but one clan underneath one chief would have their own land, their own river and all that. Another clan underneath another chief had their own land, their own river. These are not proofs that, oh no, we travel to this place. No, man. Bantu migration also is based on a strong ignorance of indigenous culture. It is founded upon a strong ignorance and disrespect of indigenous culture. How could you tell me that there's thousands of languages that you're going to group as one? You're going to group those languages as one. But you're going to say Portuguese and Spanish are not one and they are not dialects of each other. No, they're different. It's Portuguese and Spanish. But you've got thousands of languages you're going to group as one. You don't even... Who studied these so-called Bantu languages? Who studied the root? Because right now, when I look at the curricula that people are being taught at schools, it has nothing on the knowledge we took from our forefathers. You bring me a teacher who teaches language. Bring a teacher who teaches language and bring them here and let them explain. Let them explain the semantics of the word mafungwash. Let them explain it without referencing some damn book. So even the system that is built to peddle this lie is broken already. Bantu migration is a broken lie. Just because people move from A to B, which they have every right to move, and they're not going to stop moving because they're humans and they're self-defining. Just because they move, it never gave Europeans right to define who we are and who we are not. I said this other life that we are so deluded and drunk with the wine of Babylon. We don't even see that we ourselves are slaves. There is no Bantu group, some mega group called Bantu here. We were dispelling the Nguni thing, the basis of it. Not the truthfulness of the word itself, but the basis of how it's defined today. It's also A.T. Bryant. Just like the basis of Bushman language is Willem Bleek and the Lloyds, the Bleeks and the Lloyds. These groups were not writing for us. We have to understand. These books were not written for us. We were not the audience. To them, we were just monkeys. We were not even allowed to read. So you go back, you read, and you, so much truth the colonizers told about us. We came from Cameroon. Now go to Cameroon with your Kulu bloodline. Go there and tell them, oh guys, my long lost brothers of Cameroon, I'm back, yay. Do it. Go to Malawi. Qotwa, Ngosini, go to Malawi, Mbatha. Tell them, I'm back, my long lost brothers. Please, man. So that we stop arguing here. If you come from Tanganyika, go to Tanganyika then. We're not going to argue. Those of us who think they came from there, they can freely go. Now, if we look at history in its truth, there's been movement back and forth, and that is not migration. That is life in and of itself. People are moving. When they come to invade, they don't call it an invasion. It's, oh no, we're here to help civilize the uncivilized monkeys. Come on, guys, man. On the screen there, you have the Tembu King. You have the Tembu King. Utalinjeo. Just look at that man right there. That phenotype is uniquely Southern African and particularly calm in appearance. It's a very clear thing. And you cannot separate phenotype to genotype from genotype. You can't separate looks from DNA one way or another. I'm not saying you decide a person's DNA based on their looks. But what I'm saying is a person's looks are affected by their DNA. Dear SA, we have no Xhosa in Namibia. Stop spreading lies. Only us who are Zulu origin. Whoever you are, and stop smoking. It's dangerous for you. You need to stop smoking, okay? Please. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you. Stop smoking, man. These things are strong, I know, but please don't do it. Drink some water, okay? These people are creating. They're creating their own stories to justify. And now they're pushing. They're pushing this this nonsense of empty land and oh no, the Khoisans is this specific group. I would do it as well. I would tell the people who have my blood that I've impregnated the women and raped the women. I would tell the people who have my blood that you guys are the owners of the land, so that I can then take it from them. Well, think about it. I already have the land. So now this Tembu King right here. This Tembu King right here, within the bloodline of the Tembu King, you've got Eduma, you've got Ngeko, you've got Bomoy, Eduma, Ngeko, Bomoy, you've got Oma. You've got all these different groups within Abatem. Amakoma have already went over to the Northern Cape, to their people, the Omani. They already went over to make links, you know? To make links. And it is very important. It is very important that we understand that you're not going to find your truth in books. You're going to find it from your forefathers and connect it to your people. My brother mentioned earlier that the societies you find today in South Africa were already built and formed in South Africa. And I think that's a very important, very, very important aspect to look at. My brother said, you're not going to find Nguni people elsewhere who are native to that land. If you find so-called Nguni people elsewhere, they would have come from here. It's very important. There is no group that is Southern African right now, including Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique. Majority of the native societies that are in these regions would not have existed anywhere else except the regions they are in. If that's a lie, one must then go to Sudan and find the Zulus in Sudan. Because then the Zulus in Sudan should remember the history most, if the Zulus came from Sudan. If that's a lie, a Xhosa person must go to Nigeria and find me Xhosa there. If they can't find the Xhosa in Nigeria, then someone is lying somewhere. The question is, why are they lying? Why are they investing so much into lying? Well, they already took everything. Or find graves, yes, find graves and do DNA testing. Let's see, man. We want to see something now. We want to see something. We want to see evidence. We're not going to listen to anyone telling us any nonsense. And also, people talk about Southern African groups and South African groups as if they know them. You can't talk about Zulu or Xhosa or Ndebele unless you understand the intricacies. Thank you, Dr. Nomasond. Thank you. Laven. Thank you. You cannot talk about Zulu or Xhosa unless you know the intricacies. You need to understand ubungqika. What does ubungqika mean? You need to understand ubugaleka and the meaning, ubudange, and all the different aspects. So these are the people of this land and nowhere else. I'm gonna allow Imvaba Cultural Institute to have a word in your language of choice.
Mandibhotise kumntu ngokhoyo ngaphakathi ndibhotise nakuwe Hlathi. Hayi ndithi nje mandithabathe nje le mbeko undinika yona, kodwa ke akukabikho nto ndiza kuyibhekisa okwangoku kuba ndisaqongena nam ndisazama umamelo kokuba iingxoxo ezi ziqhuba zibheka kweliphi icala, kodwa ke mandibulele ngembeko.
Okay, no problem. Hayi siyabulela Nkosi yami. Hayi sihla nje
Sandile, can I just come in?
Yes.
You know, you just said a word which reminds me of something to show how language over time can be lost. Uthe Xosi.
Yes.
You know
Xosi,
that Tina in Zulu, Uxosi is the ending of when we're telling fairy tales. We say Xosi kwaphela, but we have forgotten what that meant. I only found out when I grew up and I was around Xhosa speakers that the original what Uxosi meant was, but for us it had just become a word. So, you know, I think our people, it was right of you to say, our people need to familiarize themselves with knowing other cultures, especially the Khoi cultures, so that they can find some of the origins of their people and the familiarity and the relatedness of their languages. Thank you.
Amago. Yes, Xosi. So there's three types of Xosi. There's the Xosi of giving mercy and sharing and exchanging favor and mercy to one another. That is the one I just said now to Inkosi yami, Xosi. And then there's the Xosi which you mentioned of Insomi, when someone is telling stories and and in agreement to them, you say Xosi ngansomi. We say Xosi. Insomi basically it's magnificent things, because Insomi comes from the word uksoma, which means to speak magnificent things, to speak wonders. So we say Xosi ngansomi. And then there's a third Xosi now, which we use when we pick something up from the ground. Or if I'm walking with you and you are picking something from the ground, maybe I lost a coin and then you are picking it up and I want to say, no, that was my money. I will say Xosi or Maxhosi, which means pick it up for me. And then if that person doesn't want to give you that money, they'll be like, I'm Maxhosi. We used to also say Nix Maxhosi. We used to mix Afrikaans. Now that third Xosi is equivalent to the Zulu Xhosa. So we used to use those things. Just to maybe put a conclusion to this thing, when we started, we spoke about women and their relevance in our culture, and then we shared the pictures just as guidance, of this aspect that we're going to talk about. Naturally, when we talk about anything queer related, there's always, contention. Some people feel like they own this more than others. Some people feel like they don't want anything to do with queer. There are people like that. There are people who don't want anything to do with queer. I remember a few days ago, my brother Urwa Kauseb, had a back and forth with my brother, uhlala bemnuka. My brother uhlala bemnuka didn't want anything to do with this kwe thing. It happens, you know. And then there's people who will say, "You guys are stealing kwe. You guys are." It happens, you know. But this is not politics. We are not here discussing politics. This is a very spiritual piece of work we're doing. Loki, I didn't leave you there. I didn't leave you there. No, man, sorry. We're not discussing politics here. We're discussing history. We're discussing heritage. We're discussing genealogy. If people then get offended by that, it is fine. You know, it is fine for people to be offended. I don't really care about that. What I care about is that we talk about these things. People to whom this resonates, people with whom this resonates, then they will go and explore it. More than anything, remember, you've got your family, that's your bloodline, and your onus is to go and find the truth about your family. That is your onus. You understand? You go there, find the truth about your family and your bloodline. Whatever your bloodline is, that is fine, guys. Here's another thing. Ne? If you, in your bloodline, you are related to Nilotic people, it's fine to be Nilotic. It is fine to be Nilotic, guys. If your bloodline connected to West Africa, to Igbo, be Igbo. Wear it proudly. But don't try to impose that to the rest of us. I will not impose my bloodline to you guys. I'm not trying to. I'm just sharing it. It's not going to change when I stop sharing it. And it's not going to change when I share it too much, when I share it out loud. It's who I am. And that is the core here. You should not be dictated to by external parties of who you are. And we are doing this at a macro scale because that is what's happening in Africa. They have 4 boxes to tick: black, colored, Indian, and white. But your ancestors didn't tell you any of this. They didn't tell you anything. Your ancestors told you singamantungwa. Your ancestors told you singamalala. Even Anne is hurt about what we're talking about. And it's fine. I know it hurts. It burns. It burns so much. But that's the thing about truth. It doesn't stay comfortably. It doesn't stay comfortably. Ushala Bemnuga was fighting here with my brother Urwa Kauseb. But I think that's a good thing because the next time they meet, I think we'll do much better. My brother Mtabisi Ungapaula, we're gonna move now to the next offering, which is gonna be about Kemet. We are talking about the Ogdoad and the Ennead. Buti Mtabisi. I cannot hear you. I'm gonna continue now. Ungapaula, I've been saying it. I'm waiting for you to speak. Otherwise, I'm gonna continue in the next 10 seconds. All right, I'm gonna continue, guys. The third aspect. Yeah, no, I'm moving. I'm moving. Time is against me. What's happening here? I'm moving now. My brother Limakara, do you wanna maybe share with us what we're gonna discuss next? And yes, the next live I'm gonna do, we're gonna talk about words. So it's gonna be like just words now and just talking about those words. But now there's something we want to talk about, and Brother Limakara is gonna introduce it.
Thank you, my brother. So now we're going to talk about the end word and the end word, which is mostly, I would say, it is discussed from Egyptian perspective. You know, so we want to understand the connection and some of the similarities with regards to probably the language and the meaning. So if we can break down some of these words like shoe and how they relate to our language, I think that would give people a light into why it is said sometimes that the ancient Egyptians got their knowledge from the south.
Okay. All right. Thank you, my brother. So when we talk about the Ogdoad, the name Ogdoad means the eighth or the eightfold. What is N saying? I will not let you cut down Amazulu, ancient tree, as you did to us. Hey guys, no man, it's going down in the comments. I'm sorry, man. It's just too dumb not to laugh. So the Ogdoad and the Ennead, I'm just gonna go through it, right? Because these are groups of Kemetic entities. I don't like to use the word deity, I just use entities. A lot of the times, these are personifications of certain forces. These may be forces of nature. So we're going to start with the Ogdoad, the eight or the eightfold. And you will notice these tend to be masculine and feminine at the same time. N is on fire there. But it seems like the screws are a little bit loose. So I'm not sure where the fire is blowing. It's like it's blowing in many directions. The Ogdoad. So it says here it's the eightfold. You see, these are primordial entities. These are primordial deities of ancient Kemet that were worshipped in Hermopolis, right? We're going to start with Nu. Now, we don't have pictures, unfortunately, but Nu is one of the deities that were worshipped in Hermopolis or Hermopolis, right? Nu is the masculine word, which means water. It represents the primordial waters, because in the creation myths, water was the first to exist. Now, whether this creation myth represents the entirety of time, or this creation myth represents the beginning of this age in which we are living, is not the point of discussion. But according to some of the creation myths of the worshippers at Hermopolis, water was one of the most ancient entities to exist. And therefore, Nu represented the masculine form of primordial water. Nu had a consort called Nuna, which was the feminine form of those same primordial waters. Now I'm going to share something. Nu and Nuna. I learned Nunet, yes. I learned words of izihlonipho. And elderly women used to call amanzi, amanunga. Amanzi, amanunga, which is the feminine aspect of the word of Nu or Nun. This is the primordial body of waters upon which chaos ensued. Because before order was chaos. And it is through that chaos that the solid material world we see today came about. So this material world came about in the indigenous aspect, in the indigenous mind, from the water bodies, which represent the mother and father. I remember something along the line of the earth had no form. It was formless and the spirit was hovering upon the earth. That's what I'm remembering now. When we talk about Nun and Nuna or Nunet. Our elderly mothers called it Amanunga, Amanzi. But it's the primordial, the original water. And it is this water that powered life as we know it today. So when the worshippers or the observers at Hermopolis referred to these entities, the ideas still persist to this day as Unu and Nuna, or Nun and Nunet. Now, anyone is allowed to join. Feel free to come and join the guest and add. Nkosima Art, feel free. After Nun, and if you see, unfortunately, we don't have the picture, but if you were seeing the picture, that you would see it's a blue body with wavy patterns. In fact, the letter for M, the script for M came from the wave pattern, Ma'i or Ma'im, which means man's, water in northeastern languages. Ma'i, man's, Maji, water. The letter for M literally came from water. After Nun, we have Khekh or He. Now, this one is an interesting one because if you go back in time, this entity was actually flood and chaos. It represents the chaotic aspect of water. Remember, Nuna and Nunet, or Nun and Nunet, is just the body of water in its all-encompassing form. Hech and Hauchet, or Hech and Hauchet, depending on the dialect of the language that you speak. It could be just a pure aspirated H or a guttural H. This one, Chechu, or Chech, or Chauchet, represents chaotic flood. Think about the word kuku or kukula. Is it kukula? Chauchet is kukula gas. So from Amanunga, the water in its fullness, to Isikukula, which brings chaos. Think about KZN floods. The ancient people understood that all these phenomena and forces coexisted. Sometimes we see floods messing things up with their chaos, and we always assume the flood is a bad thing, but you don't understand the bigger picture of why the flood needs to happen. We don't appreciate what's being cleansed in the system holistically. Now, Nuna and Nunet are representatives of the masculine and feminine forces of water as a whole, whereas Chech and Chauchet represent the chaotic element of water, the flood element of water, because water can be good and very bad to you. It can be very chaotic. These are 4 of the original 8. And notice how they always refer to some element of nature, because the truest form of veneration was given to nature. There's Kek and Kauket. This one is in veneration to primordial darkness. The original darkness. Because remember, I'm thinking of that story, let there be light, which means there's darkness. The people understood that it had to be the primordial waters, the primordial chaos, and the primordial darkness. These are at the forefront of the old deities, the 8. And the primordial darkness was also expressed in the masculine and the feminine form, which means the offensive and the nurturing form. Just like the sun itself. The sun can burn you, but the sun can nurture you as well. With that vitamin D you need so much. So there's that masculine, there's that feminine in everything. It's balance of energy. Kek and Kauket then were forces that represented darkness, primordial darkness. Think about a world with no form, no material existence, no physical mass can be perceived. The only thing you can see is just water everywhere, and chaos, and winds blowing crazy, and darkness. This is what these people are explaining to us. I'm gonna go to Nut and Heru. Nut is the night sky, by the way, and Heru is the hovering one. It's Ula. Now, the fourth, which is the eighth because it's masculine and feminine, it's Amun and Amunet. I spoke about Nun and Nonet, or Nuna, the primordial waters. You have Hech and Chauchet, the primordial chaos. Yes, it represents Imbeu Nesbeleto. It represents the formation of life in and of itself. Because that's darkness. The womb is surrounded by water. Hey, thing is about life, ne? Everything represents itself. Life itself is a representation of itself to the smallest particle. We are just an instance of a bigger world. Us as humans, we are an instance of the bigger world. So even these so-called creation stories, you can drill down to the smallest element of the universe. It still represents the same thing. Now, there is the last one of the Ogdoad, Amun and Amunet. Think about that. It's represented as blue color. Now, Amun is the invisible. Amun is the invisible. In fact, the name itself, in its most original form, is the unseen, the force behind. Ongabonwa. Now, the story of Let There Be Light, can be suspect. I'm not defending a story of Let There Be Light. I'm explaining the names here and how the people saw those things. The seen and unseen, Amun and Amunet. Here's the thing, ne? People think that these things this knowledge is preserved for certain groups of people. No. The way this knowledge was stored amongst all indigenous societies in Africa, it's in the language and in the belief system. It was stored such that anyone can have access to it if they dared to care. That's why there are drawings on walls. That's why there are rituals today. Unless we tap into those, we will not understand these things. And people from Greece are going to come and explain them to us. And you're going to be confused forever. My brother, Limakara, do you want to say something?
No, continue, my brother.
Now, Amun goes further into being Amun Ra. And this is where now we incorporate the solar power of the sun, the rays. You see, the word Ra, I've heard a lot of people talk about Ra. There's a series I did on R in indigenous languages. And many people are like, oh no, R does not exist. And I've said, R does exist. When Basotho or Botswana, I'm not sure which language, say, oh, Ralitsatsi, they are saying, consume the power of the sun. Or Ra, consume the power of the sun, the Ra of the sun. We say, Ukota ilanga. Hence, you have names like Lati Ta, because to say Ta is to actually emit the rays of the sun. So then that Amun Ra, in that compound form, is the invisible and visible aspect of the very sun itself. The solar power that powers nature. And I like it. I like it because it shows the development from that very, abstract form of that very abstract standard of darkness, chaos. They talk about abstract ideas in personified manners. That's why you see people, both men and women, as pictures. These are pictures of men and women. It's to personify and objectify the abstract aspects of existence. You can drill it down to the womb and the seed, because life itself forms in the same manner. Life itself forms in the same manner. That is my bit. That is my bit on the octoword. It means the eight entities. And obviously, what I've done is a very, very broad simplification. This thing is much deeper than that. But I'm out of time. I just wanted to touch on it, my brother Lee. I just wanted to touch on it and maybe make someone more interested on these things. Maybe make someone more interested. Let's look at the Ennead. The Great Ennead, as they call it. So now these are 9. Remember, the octoword are 8, and they were worshipped or observed at Hermopolis. The Ennead, on the other hand, were observed at Heliopolis. Helio, by the way, means the sun. So it's the city of the sun. Heliopolis. Now, I like this one because I touched on it a few days ago. We start with Atum. And this is also where people talk about atom. Atum means complete, but it also means end. It also means finish. When you look at the etymology of the name, the most immediate word I thought of is the word watima, like to completely shut something off. So, as much as atom is the beginning, atom is also the end. Think about an atom. When you break something down to its most basal element, you're left with the atom. And obviously, you can drill down into what the structure of the atom is. So, atom is watima, the one who represents the most basal element, the end, the nothingness of something. Now, they say watima or atom gave rise to 2 other entities that were observed. This is Shu and Tefnut. And the beauty is that I had already spoken about this. Watima represents the most basal elements of existence. Whether you can say the atom comes from there or not, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you what to think. Atom gave rise to Shu and Tefnut. Shu, go and read on the etymology of the word Shu, because those words did not have vowels. All these vowels you are hearing, atum, what, is not really the names. The name did not have vowels. It was consonants when they were written. And that's why they have so many dialectical pronunciations. It's watima, watuma, atuma, itema, etc. There were no vowels. It opened up people to have dialectical differences. The descendants of Atum are Shu and Tefnut. Shu represents lightweight. If you look at the picture of Shu, there is a feather there, which is lightweight, weightlessness. And this speaks to vapor. It's actually the word tua, which means to rise. My brother Mukaranga, come through. It also means emptiness. And we can expand on those things. It was actually one of the primordial entities as well. We are told that Shu is the spouse of Tefnut. Remember, Tefnut, I had mentioned exactly, Tefnut represents moisture. Yes, heat, absolutely, heat, absolutely. Heat, Shu, because remember, it's rising air as well. For air to rise, you need to increase the temperature. The oxygen molecules, the distance between the oxygen molecules is bigger because the bonds are weakened with heat. So the air that's rising, which is warm air a lot of the times. Shu or tsuwa, to rise. So the rising agent. Now we have Tefnut. We have Tefnut, the moisture. Think about the word ukutifa, to speed something. The word shushu. Eish, my brother, now you are taking me somewhere now. You see the word shushu, it's a reduplicated form of shu. So shushu is an emphasis, quite hot. Damn. And you know this word you find there in Kui languages. They say chuchu. Chuchu, exactly like that, which means hot as well. I love it. Tefnut, on the other hand, comes from the root tefa or tefana, ukutefuna, to spit out, as the spittle of the gods, so to say, for lack of a better word, which is moisture. So you've got hot air, you've got vapor, and then you've got moisture on the other side. Hot and humid. I love it. Wow. So do you see how it just comes to life when you look at it thoroughly? It comes to life, but also it answers a lot and fits in a lot of things. These are ancient ideas, but they are so relevant even to this day. But we let Greeks be the ones teaching this knowledge. I don't know why our people are so ashamed of this knowledge. And then there's Geb, the fourth of the Ennead. We spoke about Geb extensively last time as representing the solid element of soil, but also the powdered element of soil. That's why we say Qaib or Gub, Umquba. We also say Gub, Umquba, which is the powder soil, powder-like soil. Brother, Mr. Makara, I don't think he's there. Are you there, sir? Yeah. No, 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 it's fine. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I mean, now I can hear you.
Network is bad. We are gonna guess Isis set and Nephthys. I'm gonna have to drop now. We can continue maybe tomorrow if you want, but I'm not gonna set a time. I'm just gonna go for it when I do go for it. For people who want access to this, want access to this live, you can go to YouTube. I'm gonna post it there. I'll be posting stuff on my TikTok channel, so please my TikTok tab video gonna um it could take time because to do it. And I am as well now. And thank you guys for being appreciated. I'm not even sure just speaking. And thank you, Lima. Thank you to the sisters that have the thank you to the viewers who didn't watch. I the comment we do like to talk about things and no one is glad we are nobody stopped. We're gonna continue someone like that's the problem. I'm not talking